Let's go ahead. Now, Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Alban Bagbin, says government alone is incapable of meeting the requirements of communities for ambulances or the hospital-based ambulance service system. Speaking at a conference held at WA to donate an ambulance to the Upper West Regional Hospital, Mr. Bagbin noted that though the provision of the ambulance will augment the existing health delivery system within the community, it cannot meet all the pre-hospital healthcare needs of the community. The Speaker is asking the Ministry of Health to integrate ambulance services into the community healthcare process. Rafiq Salam has more in the following report.
Speaker of Ghana's Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, has averred that the provision of the pre-hospital emergency services in Ghana, particularly in the rural communities, is an essential one that requires urgent attention. Alban Bagbin posited that almost every health challenge originate outside of the hospital, originate at home, the workplace, the recreational center, or when one is in transit from one point to the other. He said the ability to speedily transport members of the community who require urgent medical attention from their location to the nearest health center is a crucial factor that determines survival or death for many of us.
Every health worker knows the effect of the 3 Ds to our survival: decision, delay, distance. These things affect us a lot. Many of us take a long time to decide to access health facilities. You are sick and you will not take the decision to go. It's when you can no longer walk that day now you are carried. That delay in taking the decision affects us a lot. Because the health services are far away, how they have to take you there. If there is nothing to take you, and particularly we look at the rural areas and we see how people struggle with other, these days you have the tricycle, you know, how they carry even pregnant people. It's horrible. And people delivering along the way and all those things. We need to work together to improve this, because you all know that God helps those who do what? Who help themselves. And so we need to work together. Wherever, not only in our communities, but also in our workplaces and our recreational center, we need such emergency.
The former health minister opined that effort at nation building and community development are a shared responsibility for all, adding whilst government and state institutions take charge of what is theirs to provide, communities and other significant individuals must also identify their roles and responsibilities in this effort at making life a little more meaningful for all.
The state has proven to be incapable, and that is right. They cannot single-handedly adequately meet the requirements of all communities for ambulances, for hospital-based, other emergency equipment and other services. Hence, my admiration for this very noble gesture of some community members from this region who funded the procurement of the ambulance that has brought all of us here today.
Founder of MIDA Foods, Ransom Khadija, who is the brainchild of the Upper West Region's ambulance project, narrated in detail how the monies were raised and the frustrations in its acquisition.
We raised an amount of 155,500 Ghana cedis as support from 4 sources. Summary of our expenses include getting the ambulance from Italy, 65,000, works and accessories and equipping the ambulance and fixing oxygen installation, 68,249,000 Ghana cedis. Volunteer hours and resources, 30,550 Ghana cedis. Powers. It's my prayer that our region takes responsibility of this ambulance. Take very good care of it. Question its safety if it's seen used for the wrong purpose. This is from people's sacrifices.
Medical Director of the Upper West Regional Hospital, Dr. Robert Amisia, thanked the donors for the support and pledged to use it not only for its intended purpose, but to take very good care of it as well.
If you have one ambulance and it is on its way to Kumasi, and there is another person that has to go to Tamale. You can imagine that you have to wait. We have national ambulances in the system, but they are also busy serving the populations for which they were allocated to. So I think this is a very good opportunity, and I'm very, very happy. I pray for more days like this. I hope before the end of the year, we are gathering here again to receive another donation. And I know this is a hospital for the region, and the people of this region will make sure that this hospital is maintained to serve the purpose for which it was built.
Rafiq Salam's report from Wa.
The Ejisu police in the Ashanti region have arrested 2 women who allegedly assaulted a teacher at the Bisiasi MA Junior High School. The suspect, Alimatu Sadia, and a hairdresser, Kate Sewa, all aged 30, are alleged to have pulled the hair off the teacher and dragged her on the floor in the presence of her students. The attack forced the Ghana Education Service to withdraw teachers from the school, forcing the closure of the facility. Ohim Interior of our security decks has more in the following report.
Drew teachers at the Bisiasi MA Junior High School following the attack on the teacher by parents of a Form 2 male student. This was after the female teacher shaved the hair of the student. Bisiasi MA Junior High School remained closed until Wednesday when teachers returned to the classrooms. The return followed with the arrest of the suspects identified as Alimatu Sadia and Kate Sewa after a meeting with community leaders. Michael Jatin is the Public Relations Officer of the Education Directorate.
This morning, the chief of Bisiasi and some Zongo leaders, they came to meet with management of GES, the director and his management. So we have resolved that starting tomorrow, the teachers will report to school. But we have asked them to produce the culprits so that the law can take its course. The chief promised that he's going to comb the length and breadth of Bisiasi and fish the culprits out. So we trust his words. That is why the director accepted their apology and asked the teachers to go back to school.
Final year students were busily writing their mock exams during the news team's visit. Police sources say the 2 suspects would be arraigned as a mere accomplice is sought after. From Ejisu, for JoyNews, Ohim Interior reporting.
More than 2,000 dogs and cats in rabies-endemic communities in the Bosomtwi district of the Ashanti region are benefiting from a free vaccination exercise. The Veterinary Services Department, with the support of students from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, has been vaccinating pets in the local communities. The Kennel and Chizu Club of Ghana donated 1,400 doses of the vaccine as the first tranche of 5,000 doses aimed at eradicating rabies in some affected districts in the region. Another report by Ohim Interior.
The Ashanti region has recorded 12 fatal rabies deaths, with 8 of them being recorded in the first half of this year. Pet owners defied a downpour on Wednesday to vaccinate their pets. Abuontem, Nkwanta, Dedesuya, Aputuoja, all in the Bosomtwi district are some of the beneficiary communities. Dogs who appeared resistant were all subdued by their respective owners for their vaccination. The free vaccination exercise, courtesy Adamfopa Pet Care, Happy Home, Mainstream Animal Hospital, Chizu Club of Ghana and the Kennel Club, coincided with the World Rabies Day celebrations. President of the Chizu Club of Ghana, Emmanuel Asari, is happy at the gains made so far.
For me and my colleagues, we are excited about it. The fact that we can take action in our own small way and help our communities across the country to get individuals and their individual dogs vaccinated in especially Ashanti region. And what is more refreshing is the fact that this action that we are taking today can in a long way help to keep rabies outbreak in Ghana. We want to set up an NGO, formalize the NGO called 3 for Life, so that we can get more advocacy and education to be thrown all year round. But importantly, going forward, we are looking at partnering key stakeholders like the Veterinary Service Department, so that it will not be a one-time event.
Mr. Asari, who is also Chief Associate at Adamfo Pet Care in Tema Community 2, says more vaccines will be procured for the campaign.
We want a system whereby all year round, people across the country can vaccinate their dogs. We want a situation whereby all year round, people would know that dogs' life matter, just like human lives matter.
Ashanti Regional Veterinary Officer Dr. Mabel Abudu commended the multimedia group for highlighting the plight of pets. According to her, the exercise will be extended to other parts of the region once funding is secured.
I am extremely happy. I'm happy because when the issue came up involving 4 deaths in Ashanti region, everybody was coming to veterinary. What are you people doing? And at a point in time, we were stressed up. So when the media heard of it, especially Joy, Love FM, Media House heard of it, and they came in. And out of that, we have even received support from Kennel Union of Ghana. They've donated vaccines to us. Motivate Ghana has also donated vaccines to us. And then the outcome, the awareness that we created on various platforms has resulted positively today. Rabies menace in Ashanti region, we can talk of so many districts. Asante Achim, Agogo, Obuasi, Ejeso, Bosumtri. So we have certain districts that we really do get a lot of human involvement. The intention was to vaccinate the whole region. So we made a budget towards that. But we've not received any responses.
From Kumasi, for JoyNews, Oimiteria reporting.
Let's now turn our attention to the Central region, where the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital is urging parents who have kids with cancer not to bow to misconceptions about childhood cancers, but seek early medical care at the hospital. According to the hospital, the misconceptions that childhood cancers are caused by witchcraft and spirits, and even through the food that's eaten, make many parents either abandon their kids or throw their hands in despair. Speaking at the 2022 Childhood Cancers Awareness Month at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, pediatric oncologists at the hospital asked parents to take advantage of the inclusion of the care on the NHIS and seek early treatment. There's more in this report.
Misconceptions about the cancer that is spiritual, is caused by witchcraft, is caused by the food that we eat, but all of them are not true. But cancer, people get cancer as children also get malaria.
A pediatric oncology nurse at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, Kwame Owusu-Diomi, speaking about many frustrations parents or children with childhood cancers go through.
Childhood cancers are real. Cancer really occurs at the smaller building blocks of the body, that's the cells. And children also get cancer. So we have one of the cancers of the eye, and what you see is your child might have a squint, or there will be bulging eyes, or something like cataract. When you see that, please bring your child as early as possible to the hospital. Then sometimes they have...
He says parents should note some signs in their children and send them to the hospital without delay.
I lost my daughter in 2022, childhood cancer, that is Wilms tumor, yes. And I believe that if it was detected early, we would have been able to save her life. So we have dedicated our lives to actually creating awareness of childhood cancer, helping other families cope with childhood cancer, and also making the world aware that yes, children do get cancer and then they need help.
Jane Williams lost her daughter in 2020 to childhood cancer. Ever since that painful incident, Jane resolved to help children with cancer to be cared for through her foundation, the Viva Texan Foundation.
We are also thankful to the government for including our 4 main cancers on NHIS, that is retinoblastoma, lymphoma, leukemia and then Wilms tumor, that is the kidney cancer. We are grateful that it is on NHIS. So what we are telling parents is that now the cost will not only be on you, the parents, the government is also taking part of it.
Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, Dr. Stephen Lai, is urging parents to support their children who have cancers for them to survive.
And despite all that they are going through, they are still fighting. And they need us to support them. They can survive. Say what? Better survival is achievable through our hands. We shouldn't give up on them. We shouldn't say they are useless cases. It's been a long journey in coming this far, but now we have it on health insurance.
Better survival is achievable is a theme for the Childhood Cancers Awareness Month. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kwejenyako, Cape Coast.
Some farmers at Fiaso in the Techiman municipality of the Bono East region have slammed the government for failing to compensate them more than 16 months after their 30 acres of farmlands were destroyed to pave way for the construction of a 15 million euro solid waste treatment plant in the area. They are therefore giving government 1 week to intervene and ensure they receive their compensations or they'll reclaim their lands, a move they say would halt the construction of the plant. And Elizabeth has more in the following reports.
The President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in September 2020 cut short for the construction of an integrated recycling and compost plant at Fiaso, a suburb of Techiman in the Bono East region. The construction of this solid waste treatment plant is, however, under threat 2 years after the salt-cutting event, as affected farmers whose more than 30 acres of farmlands were destroyed are yet to be compensated. Leader of the group, Nana Ahenkan, told JoyNews that 16 months after the commencement of the project, all attempts to get compensation from Zoom Lion has proved futile.
Last year, 2021, bosome enumnumu me bosome nimu ena nana furikumi ebetwa ayefu ayedu nyina de ma Zoom Lion
last year, our lands were given out to the Zoom Lion Ghana for this project. We didn't hear from them until 4 months later. So I had to call Mr. Manu, who is the director. Because it was keeping long and asked farmers our own profession here, so we wanted to know about our compensations. But he told us to give him some time. We waited and waited, and after a year, I reported to the municipal chief executive to inquire from the director why we were not paid yet. Within this same period, they started destroying our farms in an attempt to commence work. The situation, according to the affected farmers, is compounding to their hardships as they currently do not have the financial muscles to afford a new land to embark on their farming activities. It's been 1 year and 4 months and we all don't have a land to farm. Neither do we have money to go for another land. So we are really struggling as all attempts to get our compensations from Zoom Lion has proved futile. Other farmers are preparing their lands for the planting season, and because we don't have money, we can't do the same. Initially, we wanted to stop the construction work, but we were asked not to. We haven't heard anything since. All we seek from you is to come to our aid. As a woman, this is the only thing I do, that is sustaining me and my family, and I have nowhere to farm now. So please come to our aid. Abdulmajid Sedi is one of the affected farmers. He tells me that the situation is having a toll on his life as a loan facility he went for to start his farming trade is yet to be paid.
Loan still na pressure and it's not easy for me at all. Now the economy, everybody is aware of what is happening. So in fact, we are going through a lot. As at now that I'm speaking, getting money to go for another land because the yam season is starting next month. But here is the case, we are still here. We don't know where to even get money to start a new yam.
Nana Ahinka and the affected group are, however, giving government and the Ozone Lion a week-long ultimatum for a positive response, or they will be tempted to reclaim their lands and stop the construction work.
Yes, Remo. Mama, Ozone Lion pay for us on tea. Yes, some every ne.
Kindly get this to the management of Ozone Lion. We are giving them a one-week ultimatum. If they don't settle us, we will reclaim our lands because the land still belongs to us. So get this across to them. The construction of this €50 million waste treatment plant, whose timely completion is key to solving the sanitation challenges of the Techima municipality, is currently in limbo until this looming dispute is resolved. Anna Sabit, JoyNews, Fianso.
The Director of Extension Services at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Paul Siame, says that the ministry has begun a pilot program to support farmers with information on weather patterns to help their farming activities. The program, which will be in the 5 regions of the north, will register about 1.7 million farmers. Mr. Siame says the data collection will also provide solutions to the major challenges of weather forecast.
Director of Extension Service at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Paul Siame, talked of the support to farmers at the stakeholder engagement on climate-smart agricultural solutions organized by Ignatia Tropical Weather Forecasting. The program was to engage stakeholders on digital service in weather forecasting to help farmers avoid adverse impacts of the ever-changing climate. He said the ministry will engage Ignatia and other private agencies in information sharing after the farmers have been registered.
As we speak now, we have in place, I would say we have invested heavily in building and putting database on our farmers. We have started the process here in the 5 northern regions because we can only do good or we can execute good plans if we have good targeting. Farmers are our main clients, and as well as the other chain actors along the chain. So you are aware, we have started some work with broad spectrum.
Speaking at the sidelines of the program, Regional Director Africa for Ignatia, Kobna Frimpong, said Ignatia technology provides accurate weather forecast and climate-smart advisory to farmers and agri-businesses to plan better.
For us, that's telling our story. As a company, Ignatia, about 10 years ago, we started by supporting rainfall forecast. How can we use our technology or our experience to be able to give rainfall forecast? But along the line, we have evolved and realized it's not just about telling a farmer or an agribusiness is going to rain or not. So we have evolved and now coming up with more actionable messages which are more geared towards climate-smart agriculture.
Chief Science Officer at Ignatia, Andres Valgrain, who spoke on the accuracy Ignatia service and forecast gives, said the company chose Ghana over other West African countries because of the peace and stability. A farmer, Daniel Tamate, who's benefited from the program, said Ignatia Tropical Weather Forecasting has helped him save costs.
So, taking into consideration, when we came in, I was rather saving than losing because the messages were accurate. And as I keep on following the messages, it has improved my agriculture as a business. That's how I tell it. So when you come to my district, that's my nickname.
That'll be all for the news. For more, log on to www.myjoyonline.com. My name is Pakwesi Shandov. Do enjoy the rest of the day. I live in the company of Benjamin Akakpo and Mapito CBD. Stay.
Beautiful morning. There you are. Here we are. And it's a Thursday. I get excited on Thursdays. Looks like this week it's going to rain throughout. But the meteorological agency did tell us to look forward to this. Anyways, welcome aboard. Let's get into the news review. And today we're going to be talking a lot about money matters, an IMF program and all of that. Are you ready? Mapitso CBD, good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin.
Are you looking forward to that?
No, I'm not.
Why not?
What do you mean, why not? I'm not particularly interested in it.
It affects you. It affects your pocket. It affects the fuel you purchase at the pump. It affects everything. It affects your iPhone. It affects your update. It affects everything. It affects the price of your phone case.
It can affect everything, but like, I'm not interested. Like, fact remains.
Like you're not shaken?
It's not that I'm not shaken. I'm not interested. So if I'm shaken, that means I'm somewhat interested. But I'm saying that I'm not interested.
So whatever happens, God forbid, if there's an economic meltdown, you'll be interested, right? Because it affects you directly. It will affect. Already, we are seeing inflation at 33.9%, 2.2% gain month on month.
Definitely.
And you're telling me what?
I'm still not interested. Like you can't force me to be interested. I'm not interested. It's happening. I understand it's happening, but I'm not interested.
This is a hopeless case. Well, you know, interested can have two meanings, right?
Tell me.
So you could be uninterested and disinterested.
Okay.
Uninterested, you're simply not concerned. You are unbothered. It means nothing to you. Disinterested, it means you don't stand to gain anything from a situation for which reason you wouldn't be biased. So you don't have an interest. Like that's why the politicians would be, because they are politically exposed.
So, like
when they go to the bank and
unbothered.
all of that, they would. So yes, you're simply, that is option one.
Yeah,
you're simply unbothered.
Unbothered, yeah.
My bad. I shouldn't have gone down that road.
Oh,
anyway,
it's okay.
But one of my favorite rappers of all time has passed on right before we get to Dr. Abu Sakara Foster. And we all know his favorite song, Gangsta's Paradise.
Yeah.
Shall we do it?
Which part should we do?
So there's always that part that sticks in there. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's not much left. Because I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks that my mind is gone.
It's you reading the lyrics for me.
So of course, I don't remember everything.
Yeah.
But I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Me be treated like a punk, you know, that's unheard of.
Money and
I'm gonna miss
power.
this guy.
Power and the money.
Minute after minute, hour after hour.
Yeah.
Charlie, all of these legends are all of a sudden. So my producer is whispering whether I knew him personally. No, we grew up on these guys, and when they die, it hurts. I don't know. You know, I loved DMX. Okay. Grew up on DMX, and there's a pattern. A lot of them are passing so young, apart from those in their 20s and the rest.
Yeah.
We've seen some of those in the US, especially 2 years ago and last year, and even this year. Some of them through gun violence and all of that. But some of those who don't, I don't know whether it's their habits. Sometimes the weed, the coke, the fast life, the drugs, the girls,
the alcohol.
But DMX passed in his 50s. I think it was related to, I don't know whether he OD'd. Overdosed. I don't know. We saw what happened to Whitney Houston. Of course, she had a long-standing drug problem. Now there's Coolio at what, 52?
I think. 51, 2.
I think I should check.
Yeah.
But I don't know what is happening. 50s and they're gone.
It's because of the lifestyle, man. You're not sleeping. You're trying to produce music. You're traveling, 3 hours of sleep, drinking alcohol.
You're doing concerts and everyone thinks they own your life. Like
everyone thinks they own your life. You don't have a life of your own. So that's what happens, unfortunately.
It's a blow.
Yeah.
But Warren G, I don't know how Warren G will take this.
I mean,
because they were, you know.
He'll be sad. They were friends, man.
Yeah.
They were friends.
I think they were more than friends. They were like brothers.
Yeah. So obviously, it's a sad thing.
Anyway, it is what it is. We too will go someday.
Oh yeah.
And we'll have to render account, like Paul says in the Bible.
Heaven knows we will get there.
Let's get into the papers, Mapito, shall we? How about you start? Any of your papers you can?
So all of our papers, the finance minister's face is just staring at us.
Why?
Staring.
You're seeing it all the papers.
All of the papers.
Let me do a quick check of mine. Oh, same.
All of the papers.
Daily Graphic.
Yeah.
Daily Guide.
I checked
Daily Statesman.
Business Finder, Ghanaian Times, all of them.
What's the finance minister doing in these papers?
So he is restoring macroeconomic stability is our goal. That is what he is saying, finance minister. And we're talking about the IMF negotiations. You know, he did address the press yesterday. We'll get into that shortly. And let's strengthen ICC to prevent conflicts around the world. That's according to the president. Stop food waste for people and for the planet. This is International Day of Awareness of Food Loss Waste 2022, and 10 IOCs owe Ghana 2.77 million in rental fees arrears. So let's go to the big story, page 26, that Benjamin is so excited about and so interested in. Let's go to page 26 quickly. 26, where are you? All right, cool. So IMF negotiations, restoring macroeconomic stability is our goal. That's what the finance minister is saying. The government is yet to conclude processes for debt restructuring with the International Monetary Fund. And finance minister said the IMF and the government's team are currently working to update the medium-term macro fiscal framework to inform the designing of the program. Speaking at the press conference in Accra yesterday, he said, and I quote, "We simply have not reached any agreement with the fund on the parameters of any debt operations as we are in process of completing the debt sustainability analysis." Benjamin, I know that you are very interested in it, so would you like to share your thoughts on that? I know you have a lot, so let's go.
A whole lot, actually, but when I get into the Daily Graphic, I'll say more. But, you know, I just see that it's very optimistic, some of what the finance minister says, and that is corroborated by economists that have been spoken to. Yesterday, I listened to some of them. The finance minister says, for example, that he's hoping in about 2 years we can return to the international market, the Eurobond market, among others. You know, we've been shut out of that, partly owing to our debt instability and other factors, fiscal, economic factors that have not inured to the benefit of our economic setup. And he says in 2 years, some are saying, look, even 5 to 7 years, projections, those are the minimum that you're looking at. So is this administration being overly optimistic? Are they facing the reality? Or is it that it's all about giving hope, but is the hope hinged on anything real? In other words, does the hope have legs to stand on? There's also the issue of, he also made mention of the fact, I think he mentioned November 15 for the budget, so that it would reflect, I mean, when there are some agreements, the IMF is in town, it's a 10-day program, they are still, bumping heads, negotiating, trying to map the way forward for our economy. And he talks about November 15, on that day when we're going to have the next, budget statement, of course, leading into 2023. And some have said that that too is overly optimistic. I mean, you've not had an IMF program. You are deliberating with them. It doesn't necessarily mean, though he says, and the president has also re-echoed that look, it's proceeding very well so far. But we've seen in some instances where it started well, not ended so well. Some countries have gone for 2 years trying to get an IMF program, 2 years. Just trying in the process, the pipeline, like we usually say. So some are saying, look, aren't we being a bit too optimistic? And if the cookie crumbles, then what happens to our economy if we don't get what we're looking for from the IMF? But on the other end, you should face it. Kristalina Georgieva, when she interacted with me, said that, look, I am hoping we're going to do everything possible, just to paraphrase, to ensure that Ghana gets a program by end of year. So maybe the finance minister's hopes are hinged on something, but industry watchers are a bit cautious because, Charlie, the way the thing they go, we have to balance. It's a balancing act. And I feel, finally, one important thing, we need to manage the expectation of the people, Ghanaians. And I don't know whether some of these statements in about 2 years will be back on the international market. And, November 15, a hard date for the next budgetary statement, might be in that direction. You may be giving hope, but if you miss anything, then you know what that does. It makes the populace very skeptical, very cynical, if you like.
Yeah.
And then that's the other side of it.
All right, well, let's do other stories. Stop food waste for the people and the planet. It's on the front page, but let's go to page 9. This year's theme signifies the entire world needs to be aware of the negativity of food loss and waste on the planet and how we can collectively solve it. As someone who lives alone, I waste a lot of food. Like, I'm very aware that I waste a lot of food, because what will happen is that Sunday I'll go to like a shop, not the market, but like I'll go to the shopping center or the supermarket and buy some, potatoes, some vegetables.
Groceries.
Groceries, yeah. But like, it's usually with like my vegetables, that's what I'm wasting. Because I'd buy like, yesterday actually, I had to throw out two packets of like pumpkin.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I haven't used them, because I don't cook and I live alone. So there's always this expectation on Sunday that, okay, yeah, I'm going to cook this week. And then work sets in, things happen.
So
and
you end up not cooking.
I end up not cooking and the food goes to waste. So today being International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste, I think we should take a look at that, because they say that in Ghana, causes of food losses and waste could be attributed to several reasons, not limited to poor storage facilities after harvest and purchase, and a warm or humid environment promotes insect pests. The lack of fridges affects the cold chain management of products, and the issue of poor packaging, poor transportation, and market conditions. So in conclusion, they say that consumers who decide to shop in bulk, like I would, should be sure of adequate storage facilities in their home, which I do have. But now the problem is that, do I use those products that I've bought? No, I don't. So it is kind to share leftovers with the needy. Do not throw them away, because it contributes to global warming.
I could introduce you to some, is it food banks or those who they have some soup kitchens and the rest. Maybe you might be able to support them from time to time with some of your leftovers, because like with the ants, nothing is left over.
Yeah.
But I have a particular for waste, especially food waste. I do it sometimes myself, but growing up, I've experienced the best of both worlds,
Okay.
where you are living in duplexes and it's the fancy life, and where you're also, you don't know where your next meal is coming from. Luxury at a point, and there's something called ohiabubro, ohiafita. It's like I'm saying, you don't know when your next meal is coming.
Okay.
And life is all a mess. So, and there are many people out there who are still caught in that web, especially in our part of the world. So we all, I think, can do something. Yeah?
And I also
we can
think
do better.
It's an attitude
all
thing, because if you're going to a wedding or a funeral, right? Or even if you're going to a restaurant and they do buffets. So what I've noticed, which is very interesting, is that someone will go to a wedding, they'll ask for jollof rice, right? They'll ask for fried rice, and they'll also ask for spaghetti. All on one plate. And I never used to understand it, because it's like that's like 3 cups. White rice, right? Or fried rice or whatever. Jollof rice, okay? And then your spag.
I've seen people down that though.
Huh?
I've seen people take that down. Though I think it's better when maybe worse when it's a buffet, because you can take just a little scoop of
So when you go to the
each,
weddings and the funerals, because people are thinking, okay, if I just take a little bit and I come back, the food will be finished. So I'd rather take more. So it's like, greed is then plays a role there. So I'd rather take more. And then you look at their plates. Plates is a mess. It's a mountain. And they don't even finish the food.
Yeah.
And then the food is wasted.
That's one of the places. You brought up a very important subject. And look, this still borders on our economy. You know why? Because apart from that waste and that greed, which also percolates all the way through our system. It's not just sometimes when we talk about the greed, we keep pointing to our political leaders and the technocrats, because the technocrats are also in there. They do quite a lot. But we ourselves too, as individuals, but I think, I said this the other day, I feel 2 of the things that waste the most resources in our country, weddings and funerals.
Funerals, yes.
I don't know, but
funerals,
especially with the youth, there seems to be this trend, my friend tied the knot and they did this and they did that, and especially in the media, she did it. Makito is getting is going to get wed and all of that. So you must up the ante. You must. Whom are you trying to impress? People are paying what? And I'm not trying to destroy anyone's work, but people are paying photographers what? 10,000, 50. I actually saw at a point on Facebook, a photographer came and put there that this couple owes me and and you've been avoiding my call. I mean, it's scandalous. If you can't afford a 15K photographer, go for a 1K photographer. And also be you get it?
Yeah.
You may even know a friend who could. There are some times, I do a lot of paid MC gigs. There are some people, I don't charge them my standard rates. In fact, some people, I may even on the basis of what I know, how far back we go, 20 years, 25 years, do something for them for free.
Sure.
Speak to people, but we tie ourselves down with this, and next thing you know, a month into their marriage, 3 months into their marriage, they've hit rock bottom.
Yeah. And I also think it's a whole social media thing. There's so much so much pressure on social media, and it's like, I want to be the best, I want to look the best.
Who they force you?
So you know what? We also need to be honest that sometimes you look at people and you're like, oh, Charlie, like this looks good. I wish I could have that. So it's a small thing we have, like in our as a person, like you want to be better. You look at someone and like, oh, Charlie, she's really doing well. Her wedding is really good. I also want my wedding to be like that. Yeah. But unfortunately, you put yourself in
it's
debt.
It's step by step. It's step by step.
Yeah.
You may, he's rocking a nice iWatch, and maybe someone gifted it to me. You never know, But we have Dr. Abu Sakara Foster of the National Interest Movement joining the conversation. A very good morning to you, Doc.
How are you?
We are very well. I'm speaking on behalf of Mapito as well.
Yeah,
you're well, aren't you?
I'm great. I'm fantastic.
By God's grace, I'm well. Thank you.
Right. We hear you might want to, give a take on the matter we're discussing?
I didn't quite catch you from the beginning.
So we were just talking about weddings and funerals and how wasteful we all can be with them in this country. If we could quantify, Mapito, just how much we expend on weddings and funerals in a year, and maybe, like you said, how much food goes waste and all of that, it would be interesting. I'm sure it would be staggering.
Yeah.
Quick thoughts on that before we get into other stories?
Well, I think clearly when you look at the fact that we spend so much on events such as weddings and funerals, which are always kind of community celebratory events, but you cannot get anybody to spend money on digging a well in their village or spend money on some kind of constructive public use community project. And I think that itself is really the underlying problem. The fact that money is going to things that are not really very productive, but the things that we do need and the things that we can use and the things that will have a public good, people are not willing to spend money on those. The same attitude where people will build elaborate, fine houses, but if you say, okay, why don't we all together put some trips of gravel on the road and smoothing it out or build some drains? Oh, no, that is government's work. But you're the people who live there. So that shows an underlying problem. And I think we need to address this, because if we don't, then we're not addressing the core of the problem. We're only addressing the symptoms.
Interesting remarks. Mapito, you started off talking about the finance minister and what he's been saying. So maybe I'll just throw that to Dr. Abu Sakara Foster before you go on with other stories.
I think you should just add the daily graphic.
Okay, so let me get in there. Doc, so government IMF negotiations, transparent engagement are focused. That's according to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. And the Minister of Finance has stated that the government will engage the public transparently on its discussions with the IMF for support. Consequently, a 5-member committee consisting of prominent financial service professionals will lead extensive stakeholder engagements across all key segments of the financial sector, covering banking, asset management, pensions, and insurance. Doc, so there's a whole lot to this. You would look at the teachers' unions and the fact that they are complaining about some agreements that were arrived at that are not being met. You would look at the fact that we've approached the IMF. Our economy is not in the best of health. We've been spoken to about debt restructuring. The IMF says no, you've not got there yet. So many points emanating. I was just making mention to Mapito before you came through that The finance minister says he is projecting that within 2 years, we should be out of the woods and able to get international funding in, Eurobonds and others. Economists disagree. They say we'd need anything between 5 to 7 years. Again, he talks about our next budget statement, hopefully after an IMF deal is secured, on November 15. Others are saying this too is not practical. What do you think of all this?
Well, the long and short of it is that if you have a systemic problem, you need a systemic solution, not an inferior cosmetic one. And I wish sometimes that, you would have some of the clips which we have spoken about before on the same issue and simply play those old clips back, because there's nothing more I'm going to say today than what I said the very first time you spoke to me about this issue. This is not the time now to be transparent. The point of transparency was before we went to the IMF. And as I said before, what are you going there for? What is the solution you're going to propose? And as I said before, you have two boxes. The inbox is your expenditure. The outbox is the money you're going to generate. So the first thing that they were going to ask is, you're spending more money than you earn. Tell us how you are going to cut back. Which areas are you going to cut back? Is it the 1,000 staffers at, Flagstaff House you will cut? Is it the 101 ministers you will cut? Is it the many employment initiatives which were not employment in private sector, but public sector employment, things like NAFCO, all these things that you will cut? Which ones of them are you going to cut? You can't simply say, I'm going to keep all of them, but give me more money because I don't have enough money. That's not how it works. The second part of it is, even if we do give you this money, is this simply going to be used to service debt and pay the deficit of these public sector consumptive investment areas? Or how much more money will go into the private sector in areas of growth, like agriculture industry, where you are now going to grow more businesses, grow more jobs in the private sector, and then get the taxes that way to pay us? How much of this is going to happen in each area? If you can't answer those questions specifically, of course, they're not going to give you the money.
Well, only time will tell on this economic trajectory. And of course, we can only pray for the very best that because people have said that, look, we need this program, we need this money. And if we don't get it, it's going to be cataclysmic. Yes. So we only pray that we're able to get it. Because like I mentioned before you came on, countries have been pursuing packages for about 2 years and have still not got it. But at least we have the assurance of the IMF boss that by close of year, we should have.
Well, let's hope that we do, but still, getting it is not the solution. You see, what we're looking for is just a temporary solution where we get enough money to tide us over, we're able to pay a few salaries and then keep our debt profile going and being serviced. But the real issue is that until we start generating more money than we spend, and the money we borrow, we use it in a way to generate money, it doesn't solve the problem. And how many times have you been to the IMF? And we're going back there again. So if going to the IMF solved the problem would have been solved by now. The real issue and the point of transparency is for us all to sit around the table. And this is what many people asked for. It's not an NPP NDC matter. It is not an admission of failure in the sense that all the failure is your responsibility. It is a collective failure over a long period. So now let's say, look, government costs us more to run than it generates. So how are we going to handle this? If we have priorities, which priorities should we put first? And what are the other areas that we need to address to be able to grow the economy faster so we don't have to keep borrowing? This is the transparency that we need to sit together and make those decisions around fundamental reforms. And that gives us an alternative way out. But if you don't craft an alternative way out, but you just go there to see how you can maintain the status quo, then we are not solving the problem. And this is why some of us are advocating that let's all get around the table. Let's all sit together and discuss. Because at the end of the day, we have to see how we are going to cut the cost of government. And also we're going to make sure that investment goes in areas of growth. And not only that, but those areas have a much more hospitable atmosphere than they do now. Right now, anybody who has money is not going to put that money in manufacturing or agriculture because the conditions are very hostile. And if that is the case, and if you're not putting money in those areas, how are you going to grow the economy? The other service areas are already stacked up, and much of that money goes out of the country, and they don't create the kind of jobs that add value, which can keep up with the pace of inflation. So this is really the fundamental issue. You keep talking about going to the fundamentals. This is the time to go to the fundamentals.
This is the time to go to the fundamentals. We should go back to the basics and work out our economy all the way from the bottom up. Let's check out two more stories on page 16 and wrap from there with the daily graphic. Security strategy on Galamsey undergoes revision, and that story there will be giving you details of that. In fact, let me just get right into it. The national security strategy adopted to stop the illegal mining in rivers and forest reserves is undergoing revision. The revision will help make the strategy more robust and effective. The Minister of National Security, Albert Kandapa, who made this known to the Daily Graphic in an interview yesterday, said it was imperative for the strategy to be revised considering the current spate of degradation of the country's resources through the activities of illegal miners. And I keep referencing, of course, we've known this for a long time, but my good friend, Kafui Day, at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, recently paid a visit to the Pra River. And the water he fetched, I joked, though it's not funny, that it looked like carrot juice. It looks very much like carrot juice. There's also, don't be swayed by unjustified criticisms. This is what the Chief Justice, Justice Kwesi Enin-Yeboah, is saying. He has urged judges not to be swayed by what he calls unjustified criticisms in the discharge of their duties. Rather, he stressed the need for judges to be firm, resolute, and uphold the rule of law at all times. Of course, his comments come on the back of recent public debate on judicial independence and accusations from former President John Dramani Mahama to the effect that the independence of the judiciary has been compromised. Two stories: security strategy to be revised on Galamsey, and don't be swayed by unjustified criticisms, according to the Chief Justice. Quick reactions?
Well, I think the Galamsey story is just about the biggest story now in Ghana, apart from the economy. And the two are interrelated anyway, because when you have an economy such as this, it encourages people to go direct to dig out the wealth from the ground instead of digging into the ground to plant crops over a longer period. Just yesterday, I was watching a video in which a farmer was bragging about how he had cut down his cocoa to lease the land for Galamsey.
Is that the one? Is that the one who asks planting for food and jobs?
Oh yes.
What has come to me? Is that the one?
That's the one. But what he said, which was more poignant than that, was that he told them that that roofed house over there is the last 2 years of mining, and the minibus over there is the last 2 years of mining, and it fetches me my daily bread. But these mud huts you see are me from when I was a 20-year-old man till today in cocoa. So that, I think, set up a very powerful contrast, which was difficult to argue against. But of course, we'll still debate the issue because a long-term gain is better than a short-term one.
Right.
But the real issue where this Galamsey is concerned is that it's in your face. If people wanted to arrest the kingpins, they would do so without even moving, an inch to go and examine the Galamsey areas. Going to see the Galamsey area, etc., does not solve the problem. The real problem is that the people who are doing it are sitting right opposite you, and you can't do anything about it. You seize the equipment. They've made enough money to go and buy new equipment. So what difference does that make? So I think that is a real political will behind this. Now, it may well be that in the larger scheme of things, people have made up their mind that, look, mining has been going on since Adam. Fine. If that is the case, then levy bring all the gold to one place, make it official, levy it, and use some of that money and set up alternative bodies that go and do the reclamation in the areas that they have been destroying to make sure that they're reclaimed properly. So a percentage of the gold goes back directly through other NGOs or other organizations to do the reclamation because they won't do it themselves. Secondly, you can also make sure that they have in place mechanisms that provide them alternative sources of water, and that money is spent on cleaning that water before it gets into the river. That is the key to the solution. But if we keep addressing other things that are not the solution, then we will see rivers looking like, what do you call it, Milo. So right now, I think we have to be able to tackle the fundamental issues. Let's take a percentage of that money that they are making in gold and invest that money in, one, reclamation, and two, treating the water before it gets into the river.
All right, then let's go to the business find now, and the big story is analysis of debt not concluded. To run today's sustainability talks, that's according to the finance minister, and we also have from the NPA CEO who says demand for petroleum products records 41% increase in 2021. And Energy Minister seeks investors for Ghana's 5 oil blocks in the USA. But very interesting story on page 7 is that all financial institutions to blacklist Momo loan defaulters. That's according to the Bank of Ghana. They have warned mobile money Momo loan defaulters that failure to pay attracts negative repercussions. According to the banking sector regulator, failure to pay Momo loans would adversely affect any chance of obtaining loan facilities from other financial institutions and credit providers in future. Now, they were reacting to reports that some individuals who have acquired loans through Momo platforms have deliberately refused to register their SIM cards in the ongoing National Subscriber Identity Model card registration exercise with the intention of avoiding repayment of the acquired loans, Benjamin. Now, we spoke about this stubborn academy that they were deliberately trying to make sure that they're not going to pay. They're like, okay, if you're going to force us to register our SIM cards, then it's fine. We're not going to register our SIM cards. We will just, and plus we owe Momo anyway, so it's fine. We won't register, just take your money, it's fine. Doc, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, stubborn academy. The key thing is that I think we have to decide what we want. We do want this access for money transfer, etc., that the digital platform has provided to be able to move money about freely. And at the end of the day, how much are they making? Because most of these people are operating out of kiosks. If they were making huge amounts of money, they wouldn't be sitting there. So I think there has to be a give and take situation where maybe you have to reduce the amount of taxes on them to leave them enough incentive to come and pay this willingly, and to create some kind of incentive, because there's so many of them. If you take all of them out of the system, it's like cutting off the nerve endings of your body, and the blood won't get there. And you know what they say about money, sikaya moja, and if blood is not getting there, those parts will die off. And so that's part of the economy that dies off when you take them out of the system. But by the same token, you have to have some amount of incentive for them to be in the system. So I think that it's a balance between the incentive and the punishment. Maybe the punishment is more than the incentive. Maybe you have to adjust it a little bit to give them enough incentive to stay in the system, bearing in mind that they have a public good just by existing.
Sure, Doc. Now, we also have rethinking tourism as a pathway for development. I mean, we've been speaking about tourism for like the past 2 weeks and how these tourist sites, leading to the tourist sites, they have terrible roads, they have terrible toilet facilities. But Ghana President Akufo-Addo is determined to make Ghana the most preferred tourist destination. So how do we do this? Because if the roads are not good, the facilities are not good, how do we make sure that tourism is actually something that people will come down for and will actually make money out of?
And just to add, when you look at countries that are focused on tourism and gleaned the most from them, Cuba, island country, not so endowed. Look at what they've done with their industry. It was conscious.
Yeah.
Dubai in the United Arab Emirates and what they've done. So it is clear what we have to do. But are we doing it? We've had the year of return, beyond the year of return. We've also had the recent one, the Citizens, Global Citizens Festival. Good, but without these, how are we going forward?
Yeah, so what are we doing without all of these third parties as Ghanaians to say that, okay, let's go to Kakum National Park. What is happening? How are we making sure that Kakum National Park is attractive to investors, is attractive to foreigners, is attractive to tourists? Doc, any thoughts?
Well, I'm not an expert in tourism, but I think from a perspective of targeting your clients, there's much to be said here, because I lived in East and Southern Africa for quite a while, and whereas there are different categories of tourists, so you have to target those tourists that you want, and if it is the festivals, etc., that you want to have, those are usually in provincial towns, so the infrastructure is already there to some extent. But if it is in getting involved in livelihoods and off-track beaten areas, maybe you have to target those tourists that actually want to go into areas like that, because they're tented areas in East Africa which are like living in a five-star hotel. There are other tented areas where you walk there and it's like living in the wild. So you have to decide the kind of tourists that you have, the amount of money that you have, and then attract those people who maybe in the beginning would like the areas in a certain way, which are not too far developed. And then as you get more money, you develop the areas where, they attract a different kind of tourists. So that's the first thing. The next thing, obviously, is that not every area has the same resources. For example, I would say we can't compete with certain areas in terms of beaches because, one, naturally, our shelf is very deep. It's not a shallow one which you can walk out to the river, to the sea, 1 mile into the sea. It falls very rapidly.
Yeah.
And then our beach borders are very narrow. They're not wide beaches. So maybe you should be focusing on another kind of tourist. Maybe he wants to walk in the savannah. Maybe he wants to walk in the forest. And you don't build roads into the forest. So those kinds of people, I think you need to target them more clearly. And one of the things that really I think we haven't looked at is that when people come here because of the social, cultural, historical aspect of slavery, they go to the Cape Coast, they go to the dungeons. But the dungeons were only the last place. If you've left Accra for years and you now want to visit Accra, you don't go to the airport. The airport is where you arrive.
Yeah.
There were trails of tears before these people got to those beaches. Some of those trails of tears go along paths where people either ate food in certain particular places or washed in certain particular places. There may be some people who actually want to experience walking along those trails.
Hiking.
And experiencing that. But because they haven't knitted this into the social and cultural fabric of the society so that the people there can accompany them and take part in this activity,
right,
they've just left it as a dead thing where you see it and now you've seen it, it's finished. But what about doing it? What about living it? So those are other aspects that we need to think about. And those don't require so much infrastructure. In fact, what they need is the people there to be as they are and for the people coming to live with them and experience that life with them so that they see it. So I think we need to tweak the tourism thing. And the other aspect of it now is looking at impact of climate change and the ecology and how to build that into the tourism. There's significant funds for carbon sequestration, that is creating carbon sinks, that the industrialized countries have rightfully put some money aside for that because they refuse to change their way of doing things.
Right.
So instead they want to spend money on it and hoping that other countries elsewhere who don't have the amount of sequestration, the amount of emissions that they do, can find ways of creating more sinks so that, you know, they use it to balance their books. We should look at how we link those funds to developing this kind of tourism so that, you know, we're killing two birds with one stone. I think that there are many ideas around there that we can work with.
Well, we'll have to draw the curtains here. The only top-up, just the headlines from the Daily Guide. But on the back of that, intra-tourism too is something we really... Tourism by Ghanaians, locally. You know, how many people have been here, been there? There are so many places we don't go to. But the Daily Guide, support Ghana to industrialize, that's according to Trades Minister Alan Chemating, and fossil fuels to remain in short term, that's according to Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. Well, on that note, we'll just call it, I think there was but we'll leave that for later. Samuel Kojo Brace comes to mind. Okay. Shall you initiate us into sports?
I think
usher us right into sports.
I did.
No, I'd like you to do it.
No. Today, Dr. Wisakara Foster, thank you so much for joining us. And in our fantastic shades of green.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it for the newspaper review. Up next is sports.
It is the FIFA World Cup that is gradually getting closer, and pundits are beginning to question Otto Addo's ideas ahead of the FIFA World Cup. However, one man who has thrown his weight behind the Borussia Dortmund junior team coach is Laie Kingston, but he has an advice for him. We'll also be hearing from a former management committee chairman of the Black Stars, Fred Papo, as well as FIFA's high performance specialist, Faisal Chipsa, who have all shared their thoughts on Ghana's preparedness for the FIFA World Cup and what we should be doing to ensure that the country has got the best of preparations and participation in the Mundial. Muftar Nabila Abdullah here with AM Sports. Let's start from a former midfielder, now a football coach, Laie Kingston, who says Ghana's final match against Switzerland on November 17 should give Ghanaians an idea about the starting lineup for the Black Stars opening game of the Mundial against Portugal on November 24. Ghana is expected to play its last friendly match on November 17 against Switzerland, and Laie Kingston wants Otto Addo to start with an 11 that he thinks will be going into the first game against Portugal.
Thanks for Otto to go into that game to show that the players that he will pick to start the game against Switzerland will be players going to start the game in our first game in the World Cup. Every coach will do that. As a technical person, I will do the same thing. Because last game, and I know countries will do the same thing. So I would like to see the team Otto parading like the first starting 11 that is going to represent the country. His best players that he believes can help him achieve something in the tournament, he will have to line them up for Ghanaians to see. Going into the game, of course, everybody wanted to win their last game before they go into a major tournament, to have confidence to their first game in such tournament. So it's not going to be different. I believe
Black Stars would love to have a win against Switzerland. Switzerland is a team that is not weak. They have good players. They have players that they are playing in big clubs in the world. So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a tough game. Switzerland and Brazil, you can say Brazil is ahead of Switzerland, but not far from Brazil. They are the level that the Swiss team is in now. So for me, it's going to be a very good game. But I would like to see Otto putting up a starting 11, like a strong team against Switzerland. And they have to go all out and then play well like they did against Nicaragua, so that the players will bring that confidence into their first game in the tournament.
Ghana's preparations for the FIFA World Cup, according to many, has not been at its best. The Black Stars suffered a 3-0 drubbing at the hands of Brazil before defeating Nicaragua 1-0. One man whom FIFA has tasked to ensure that Africa is able to build their national teams to the extent that they can compete and put themselves in a position of winning the FIFA World Cup is Faisal Chipsa. He is FIFA's high-performance specialist for Africa. He says Ghanaians should lower their expectations heading into the tournament and look beyond the World Cup. However, he believes Ghana has got a quality to be able to get to the semi-final of the tournament if the Ghana Football Association is able to do the right things.
I like the stability in the team now, especially on the technical side. One thing I'm also happy about is the noise around the Black Stars. All of a sudden, it seems like it disappeared. Before then, there was just so much noise on call-ups, on coaches, and that really is not healthy for a team that's trying to qualify or compete at the World Cup. So one thing that I think our technical team now have brought, which again I'm happy with, is to reduce that noise. So now we have a positive environment where they can try new things, they can pass on the ideas of football, and even with the team itself, we still don't have a solid, team that has been together for a long time. There are still new faces coming in, as you would expect. So I think we should calm down, just like you said. Look beyond the World Cup, in my opinion. What's next after that? But at the same time, we still have to go and compete. So I like what they are doing. I like the players that have come in. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough time to get to know ourselves and what works well for us. But we still have to go and perform.
How well do you think we can do at the World Cup?
How well?
How well?
If we get to the Final Four, I'll be happy.
Semi-final, you think? We have the quality to do that?
Remember, we have the quality, that's one thing. But this is a tournament. You need a bit of luck. Even the champion team, the champions need some luck. You need to avoid some...
I remember the 2018 World Cup when Germany was beaten by South Korea. No one saw that coming.
Exactly. So you need a bit of luck, no matter how you look at it. You have to avoid certain teams early on. Because again, once the tournament starts, you build momentum and go into the quality rounds. That's when you begin to find yourself. So I'm hoping that we get to the Final Four.
The full interview is on the show tomorrow at exactly 7:10 a.m. Do join us for an interesting conversation with Faisal Chipsa, the younger brother of Yusuf Chipsa, who is now a FIFA high performance specialist for Africa. Still on Black Stars, well, a former management committee chairman of the national team, Fred Papo, says he thinks the national team should not be led by a management committee that is more than 3. Though during his era, there were about 15 people who were spearheading the management of the senior national team. He thinks some of these numbers are quote-unquote unnecessary, and he wants the current leadership of the Ghana Football Association to consider having at least 3 people lead the management committee of the senior national team.
I do not think any number beyond 3 will be necessary.
Okay.
For me, I think a 3-member.
At the time when you were in charge, it was more than 3.
For a long period of time. We started as a World Cup committee. The government of the day then under former President J. Akufo they appointed from the World Cup committee. I think we're about 15 or so.
Okay.
Quite a number under the chairmanship of the late Vice President Alhaji Aliu Mahama, with Obi Amo and the rest, So I think after he didn't come for the first, he actually delegated the sports minister or the deputy to preside. Then we went in to play our first match against Burkina Faso in Ouaga on about 4th or 5th of June 2004. We lost by 1-0. When we got to Ghana, the second meeting, the meeting after that, nobody attended.
I see.
Yeah, and so meanwhile, football people were, it had all manner of business magnates and the rest, tycoons on there. But
who didn't have the time?
They didn't have the time, they didn't have the heart and the passion for the game, It's a different thing when you're talking about football. If you may be whatever it is, you may have all the credentials, but then if you are not a football person, you are not the football person. So the second meeting, none of them turned up. At that time, the football people were agitating that, look, the management committee was supposed to be a preserve and a function of football people. You guys just stay back. So they went ahead and then formed a 5-member management committee. We met, we played against South Africa. After the South Africa game, a problem erupted between two of our members. I don't need to mention names now. And the two
Joy Sports World Cup tales. That is one of them. We heard from Fred Papo. He was chairman of the Black Stars during Ghana's participation in the FIFA World Cup in 2006 and 2010 before he lost his position as vice president of the football governing body in 2011, where he was replaced by the late Jordan Nagula. And my colleague Nathaniel Atto has been having extensive conversations with people who have contributed immensely to Ghana's participation in previous tournaments. So it airs every Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Now let's do some local football news. And Kumasi Asante Kotoko, they picked their first win of the season after defeating Insuatruman 2-1 at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium.
Or Walid Fuseni, who were in very good space, and they would have straight away been zoned into Kotoko's back line.
And here comes Amankuna. He's got great pace. He goes down. There's a penalty from the challenge of Shari Faisal.
Buedu's ball is absolutely pitch. Difficult one for the defender to get onto. And it's Amankuna who is on his bike. Yeah, he's been clattered into. It's clumsy.
Amankuna steps forward. And Amankuna scores. It's Asante Kotoko 1, Insuatruman 0. Steven Amankuna.
Best of penalty kicks there. I think the goalkeeper just didn't dive to his left enough. But the boy is very close to the middle than close to the posts.
Zeze. Good ball. Now here is Mukwala. Wow, another miss.
And he looks into the skies, asking how and why he's not buried that Zeze's pass. It's a brilliant ball. The angle on this pass is magnificent. The weight of it is perfect. And all Mukwala has to do is to just find the right bend to it. He does everything right, but the kick.
Walid Fuseni's ball punched away by Danlad. Isaac Opon gets something on it. Good movement from Zeze. What a play from the Ivorian. He's searching for it, looking for support. It is Zeze now to Amankuna. Does he get his brace? Amankuna straight to Yahoo Sansan. Ofori. Good play from Opon. Here is Mukwala. Sets up Isaac Opon. Here is Isaac Opon. And he gets Asante Kotoko's second goal. It's 2-0 for the Porcupine Warriors. It is Isaac Opon.
And it's Isaac Opon who started the move very nicely, got the ball over his man and ran into a good space. Mukwala squared the ball to him. A sure touches to get into space.
Mahama's corner. Ofori's header, and is the equalizer. Insuatruman have a go back. Kotoko 2-1. Certainly not the equalizer, but they are back in it. Insuatruman, who are back in this one.
Yeah, Philip Ofori climbing to get head on the ball there. I think it's Morrison who's trying to defend, but the defender good is just a scoop.
Let's hear from the head coach of Insuatruman FC, Mohamed Gago, who is unhappy with the decision of the referee to award a penalty against his team.
I was even a little bit surprised with the character shown by these boys today. You can see the conditions of the pitch. We couldn't get to maneuver our way well from the first half, but the second half, I think we were able to push a little bit harder. For me, these things that happens all the time, that penalty has to be given to a whole team because they play home. I really criticize, I really disagree about it. I mean, they were running after the ball, I mean, shoulder to shoulder. The guy did not stick his hand out to push the guy, but why the penalty? You understand? I mean, these are the things that sometimes demoralize some of us who are here and willing to give back to football. Sometimes it is not fair, but you cannot speak much. You understand? But on the whole, I will say well done and congratulations to Kodoko because they've won their first match of the league, which they needed so much. We have done our best, but at the end of the day, we lost to Kodoko by 2-1.
This is a wrap up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah. I have picked intel that FIFA has sent $2 million into the account of the Ghana Football Association to prepare for the FIFA World Cup. The money came in August this year. Thanks very much for your company.
So watching the AM show, I'm a CBD. Now, labor unions and public universities in Ghana are threatening an industrial action should government fail to honor the implementation of memoranda of agreements between the parties. The University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, Ghana Association of University Administrators, Tertiary Education Workers Union of Ghana, and the Senior Staff Association of Universities of Ghana at a press conference Wednesday cautioned governments to refrain from varying the conditions of service if they want to have a peaceful environment to negotiate with the IMF. We'll look at that today, and joining me for that conversation is Dr. Samuel Nkumban, who's the UTAG president, University of Ghana. Doc, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and good morning to viewers.
Now, let's start with the MOU, when it was signed and what was contained in it.
Thank you very much. A couple of MOUs were signed between UTAG particularly and government. Mm-hmm. In June of 2021, we had an agreement with government, particularly with reference to some payroll allowances that are due UTAG members. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, contained in that MOA was also the clause that given the frequent hikes in prices of fuel, we would have government review fuel allowances at least twice every year. Mm-hmm. And I must indicate that that has not happened.
Okay.
So from June 2021, that MOA was signed on 16th of June 2021, up until June this year, mm-hmm. The agreement that such allowances will be reviewed twice every year didn't happen. Also, with regards to the book and research allowances, in August of last year, we did have an MOA signed again.
Okay.
And the agreement was that by close of August of this year, we would have received our book and research allowances, and as we speak, that has not been paid. The trouble has been that from June this year, there was notice to an increment in the fuel allowances, which stood at 6.05 Ghana cedis,
okay,
to an increment to 10.99 Ghana cedis. So this is what was supposed to take effect from 1st July of this year.
Yeah.
So management of the universities have used that to recalibrate the allowances in terms of vehicle maintenance as well as off-campus allowances. Notice comes this month to indicate that management of the universities should reverse that increment. And the indication is that it doesn't apply to others who are deserving of the vehicle maintenance and off-campus allowances.
Okay.
And so, and that increment stands for only duty bearers. And so it's some kind of creating some hierarchies that would not inure to the benefit of all of us. Besides that, I think earlier in the year, sometime in March, government indicated that it was going to vary again the situation regarding fuel allowances. It stood in gallons. So if you were a deserving faculty, say you are entitled to 5 gallons of fuel per month, government sought to vary that and to determine that in an absolute figure in terms of monetary reward, so that you no longer are entitled to the allowance pegged in gallons. So all of these have happened without recourse to the unions in terms of, say, negotiating conditions of service. It's the case that if there's reason to vary our conditions of service, we think that the good thing to do would be to engage us and to say that for A and B reasons, we need to relook at your conditions of service. And in any case, I don't see in which country that you would want to vary conditions of service of workers to their detriment in terms of the fact that it rather has a negative implication on them. And so that is where we find ourselves. And we think that government is not treating us fairly when it comes to these matters. And that is what has brought us to the press conference of yesterday.
Now, talk about a book and research allowance. In your line of work, isn't that something you're supposed to do already?
Well, of course, we are entitled to a book and research allowance, which allows for us to be able to subscribe to journals, to be able to conduct research, and to be able to publish. And also to be able to improve quality of teaching as regards new trends that come in each of the fields of study that we are engaging with. Now, what we are even saying, this book and research allowances usually should come at the beginning of the academic year so you can work with. But what we are talking about is arrears for last academic year.
I see.
And so we kind of pre-finance many of the activities that we have to carry through. And the academic year is ended. We are beginning the next academic year pretty soon, and yet we have not been paid for the previous year. And that is where, that is what the situation is. And many of the other bit is that we have written several times to government as reminders in terms of the fact that we do have these agreements and we don't get feedback. And so when the fuel situation came up with government varying that without recourse to us, we wrote to indicate that it was not right. We wrote to the Labour Commission to indicate that it was not right for government to vary our condition of service without recourse to us. Labour Commission acknowledged receipt of our letter, I think, on the 4th of May. And sometime in April, wrote to government, giving government within 7 working days to give us a feedback. And as we speak, we have not had any feedback. On the 22nd of this month, we again wrote to government and to the National Labour Commission. And as we speak, there hasn't been any formal response from their side. And that doesn't seem sufficiently fair to us.
So some would say that, talking about the book and research allowance, this is your line of work. For example, with me, I'm on television, so I wear makeup, I have like my dresses, and I pay for my dresses because that's my line of work, that's what I've chosen. Why should government pay you for the book and research allowance?
Well, of course, it's an agreement we had with government because, in fact, this has been like from the year 2005. And it was obvious that our condition of service was bad, and it was not possible to sustain ourselves with the kind of salaries at the time. And it's the same, nothing has changed. And so this was provided in order to mitigate some of the expenses that we make. And so, for example, you send a scientific journal to a paper to a journal and they require you to pay $700 before it's published.
I see.
And so, and your promotion is not based on the fact that you work 3 years and then you are promoted to the next rank. Your promotion is based on the fact that you are productive academically. And that means that you are researching, you are publishing. And so the number of papers you publish, your extension services, and the teaching that you do are that which contribute to your growth in terms of getting promoted. And so these are agreements we have had with government over the years, and we think that even if there is reason to vary that, then of course we have to get to the table.
Now, when last did you receive the book and research allowance?
Well, it would be, I think it was October of last year for the previous academic year. So it's always in arrears of 1 year.
Of 1 year, okay. So we understand that you are fighting reduction of your fuel allowance. How much did you ask for? How much is government saying they'll give you?
So, like I said, in the MOA of 2021, we agreed that twice every year they will adjust it upwards based on the ex-pump rates. As of this time, you and I know that fuel is buying around 14 Ghana cedis. And so the increment that came from the side of government took it from 6.05 cedis to 10.99 cedis. We don't have a problem with that. We are not asking for an adjustment above the 10.99 as we speak, because that was what was communicated to us by government. But government is saying that 10.99 is not meant for all those who are supposed to be enjoying it. And so if you were enjoying it at 6.05, then you are going to continue to enjoy it at 6.05, despite they have communicated that it has gone up to 10.99.
Yeah.
And that the 10.99 is limited to certain small group of persons who you would refer to as duty bearers. And so we don't think that is generally fair, because we are all going to the same market, we are going to the same fuel pump. I don't think they mean to tell us that it is less expensive now to buy fuel or less expensive now to maintain our vehicles, so that we are not entitled to the 10.99, which government itself communicated.
Now, how would this negatively affect the role that you play?
So the point is this, that somebody lives in Kaswa and has to come to University of Ghana to work.
Yeah.
He buys fuel, right? He maintains his vehicle. And so if that is the basis upon which we are determining the off-campus allowances and the vehicle maintenance allowances, which are tied to how much the ex-pump rate is in terms of fuel, then of course, what it will mean is that if you were enjoying it at 6.05 and it goes up to 10.99, you are getting something more than 5 cedis at least on each liter. And so at the end of the day, an individual is going to be losing not less than 500 Ghana cedis for say vehicle maintenance, and another possibly 500 Ghana cedis out of, say, off-campus allowance. And impliedly, so we are talking about something in the range of over 1,000 cedis that each individual is going to lose out on.
But you can see that, the economy is not at the right space right now. Would it be so bad to ask you to sacrifice?
Well, of course, that is what I'm saying. If it is the case that government wants to ask labor unions to sacrifice, call us to the table.
Okay.
You don't do that sitting in your office and writing letters and giving directives to people to act.
So you're saying you haven't been engaged?
We haven't been engaged.
Okay.
In many of these that have come, they are just letters that are directing management as to what to do. And so if indeed there is genuine concern that the economy is as bad, and so everybody has to sacrifice, we have to see what government is doing on its part by way of sacrifice, so that you can require of your constituents to also make sacrifices. Aside that, you don't issue directives without recourse to engage in them. And that is where we find problematic.
And you've written to the Employment Ministry, you've written to the Labour Commission, and
Many
still
times.
you haven't gotten responses from them.
April of last year, from April of this year we wrote, there's no response, and the 22nd of this month we wrote again.
So what's the way forward if they don't respond?
So at the press conference, we indicated that within a week we expected some feedback. And if we do not get the feedback, of course, usually it's the national executive committees of these unions that will have to get together again and then engage with our members, and then we take a decision on what next line of action we take.
And you're not worried about the students that it will affect?
Well, of course, many of the times it's been the case, and you would agree that we've been sufficiently magnanimous when it comes to dealing with our students, and that many of the times we have had to suspend our industrial action in order to ensure that at least we bring back the academic year to in line. And many of the times we also work without going on vacation in order to realign the academic year when some of such things happen. And like I said, we suspended our industrial action August of last year in the hope that the MOAs we signed were going to be implemented by our employer. And it's obvious that none of such agreements have been duly followed by way of government seeking to implement them. And so it gets to the point where you are pushed to the wall beyond certain limits, and the next line of action is explosion. That is the kind of thing that we hope that government would not get us go as far as that.
All right, so let me go to the phone lines right now. Joining me is the Executive Secretary of the National Labour Commission, Ofosu Asamoah. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, good morning.
Now, you've heard what Dr. Nkuman has to say. Any thoughts? What would you like to say?
Unfortunately, I did not hear him in full, so I don't know what.
Okay, well, they are threatening a strike over unpaid allowance, and he mentioned that they have sent letters to your offices and they haven't gotten a response. And I mean, they obviously want a response. Do you have one for them?
So let me indicate that
all the things that have come from their end have been worked on. And I listened to the press conference and I read the press release, and I don't think that they mentioned at any time in point that we did not respond to any letter. All that was reference made to me as a person, as the Executive Secretary. I am there looking on to what the government is waiting for them to go on strike and then to do the usual. That is the only part that I think comforting. As a commission, the committee has looked at the matter, the committee has looked at the decision. We have gone ahead to negotiate on the terms of payment that is supposed to be paid in August, so that if the employer or government has supported the payment, the only thing to notify the commission that then we came to you, we said this, the government has not performed this part. So we will then move in to ensure that we enforce the decision. But today we are there looking on what I think that will enforce that anyway. It has come, so we are going to ask for this and
Dr. Nkuman, you wanted to say something?
Yes, so I wanted to indicate that the letter we wrote to the Labour Commission in April, we got a response from the Labour Commission acknowledging receipt of the letter, and that they had directed the ministry to respond. And so for the Labour Commission, at least there was an acknowledgement of receipt of our letter to them.
Okay.
And directive given to government within 7 working days for government to give us feedback is on the side of government. We have not had any feedback.
Okay, it's on the side of government. Okay, but Mr. Asamoah, why are we here today? What exactly is the problem?
In fact, I do not know until having just been told through their press conference. Because if the normally when we say the parties go and government paying their allowances, government will not come and tell us. Neither will they come and tell us, because after all what we directed is being done. It is only when there is a default in the performance of one of the parties. And what we ordinarily expect is that one party will inform us. That is what has come yesterday. So we have to know. I'm sure government has said them loud and clear. So we will also do our part to make sure that we don't get to what is getting here.
And when you say you also do your part, what exactly will you do?
We will enforce that. Whatever is there to be done.
And you know what is to be done, right?
Sure.
So would you like to tell us, or tell Dr. Nkuman, what exactly is that you'll do? So you tell me that you want to do what will be done, but what is exactly that needs to be done?
Dr. Nkuman knows it. You know it, I know it.
Okay, well, my audience doesn't know it. I don't know it. So would you like to share with me?
The audience said that they want a restoration of their fuel allowance where it ought to be, that their book and research allowances should be paid, which is an area should be paid, and any other matter. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Please speak Dr. Kuman for me.
Yes, good morning, Senior.
Sure.
Good.
Now, but so here's the thing, that we're always having these issues coming up, right? What's the NLC doing so that they don't come up again?
This question should be directed to the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Employment. As for NLC, we have decided our part. So it is for whoever is to be, who has not to answer that. And is that okay?
It's not really okay, but I'll take it like that because it seems like you don't want to answer my question.
Who is to pay the book and research allowance?
It's government.
Who is to pay the fuel allowance?
All right, I hear you. I thank you, Mr. Ofosu Asamoah, who's the Executive Secretary of the National Labour Commission. Okay, but as a mediator, what are you doing?
We are going to make sure it's paid.
You're going to make sure to what?
That the NIPO is done.
So you have 1 week to do this. Is that enough?
Since we are not I cannot see whether it's enough or not. But at least we'll begin the process.
But you're part of these meetings, are you not? And you have seen the letters. So you should have some sort of idea.
No, we are not part of the meetings beyond giving the decisions from the committee. We are not part of the decisions thereafter. That is between the union, government, the committee, and not the Labour Committee.
So do you think that UTAG is being too hard on government, looking at like the economic situation, the current economic situation of the country?
But I am unable to comment.
Dr. Nkumban?
Yes.
Do you think you're being too hard on the government?
Unfortunately, no, because if we consider the cost of living, then certainly we are sufficiently lenient. Given that for how many years down the line, we've not had any increments in our basic salaries beyond any meaningful measure. You will recall that as a result of COVID, we got only 4% basic salary rise.
Yeah.
The following year, which is this year, what we are getting is just a 7% increment in basic pay. And that certainly is not commensurate with the kind of costs that we have to incur in terms of our living conditions. And so I wouldn't say we are being harsh, but what of course is important is that if government is willing to plan and plan properly, when you go into negotiation and agree on what has to be done within certain times, our expectation is that you would also have planned and made preparation to meet those timelines.
Yeah.
And so for us to wait until the deadlines elapse, and then you come and complain and to give, I don't want to use the word excuses, but it seems to me that that is what the situation is. And that is where we have difficulty. So if you had agreed that by end of August, you are going to pay book and research allowance. End of August is due. We send you a reminder that we are getting to the deadlines, which we set ourselves. You say you are working at it. Today, September 29th.
But what were some of the reasons that government gave?
I mean, it's just the usual processes. We have done this, it's approved from here, it's at this office. From 7th of September, we got a letter indicating that Ministry of Education had authorized release of funds to Ghana Tertiary Education Commission for the payment of the book and research allowances from 7th September until date.
Yeah.
We have not had any feedback in terms of where we are, whether the GTEC has received the funding or not. We have not received our payments, and that is the bottom line.
And then when last did you engage the Employment Ministry?
We wrote a letter again to Ministry of Finance on the 22nd of this month, and we have not had feedback.
22nd of this month, so that was just like some 5-ish days ago.
Yes.
Okay.
And of course,
and
before then we had written in April and in May.
And had you gotten responses?
We haven't gotten responses.
Okay.
And so, in particular, this was also triggered by the fact that a directive had come again to vary the fuel allowance from 10.99 to 6.05 for some category of workers. So that is what triggered the 22nd letter again, which of course we have written again to Labour Commission as well to indicate that that would not be acceptable to vary our conditions of service to our disadvantage.
But the question still remains that why can't you sacrifice, looking at the current situation of the economy?
If you require me to sacrifice, we had an agreement. Come to me. Let's talk. And so that is the bottom line. Also, you don't sit in your office and write directives.
Okay.
And so it doesn't show sufficient respect to the partner that you are dealing with when it comes to that. So if you require me to sacrifice, you need to engage me to come to terms with you that this is reasonable and that we can go with this. And so that is the point we are making. It's not a case that anybody wants this country to crash.
Of course not.
Of course not. And so we have to see that on the side of government, you are doing what you mean, tightening your belts. And so when you ask us to tighten ours, then it will make sense. And so besides that, you can tighten it for us whilst you have not engaged us. That is the point we are making. We need that engagement to happen.
Okay, so let me go to the phone lines. Mr. Samoy, are you still with me?
Yes.
So when these MOUs are signed and they're written out, is it not the job of the NLC to follow up and make sure that things are done according to what was agreed upon?
Well, you see, the NLC current will not allow us do a follow-up on all the MOUs and the agreements that are given to us. Ordinarily, we should be able to do a follow-up on it. But our current staff is just a little over 50, spread in Accra, Sakwati, and Martin. And we are not resourced enough. So it makes things difficult. So ordinarily, we are on some of the things that when we come to us, I think we do our best that we are doing the focus time.
So, Mr. Asama, what I'm hearing from you is that the National Labour Commission is also struggling with resources. Is that what you're saying?
I think they are struggling that most of the people we receive complaints from.
Please repeat your answer.
I think we are struggling more than people who come to complain to us.
So
we are the key to solve their problems.
Okay, so you're okay. I understand you're struggling more than the people coming to you for answers. So what are you doing about your own struggles, so that you can help the people that are asking for help? Because if you are suffering yourself, how will you help the next person or the next?
Oh no, we have a good balance, and that is what we are doing.
But okay, so you're saying you're doing your best, but as we are looking at it right now, your best is not enough.
Yes, that I agree personally. It's definitely not enough, yes, I know. Because, like I said, we are limited. Our basic, we are going to that market, that part, and we don't have now to attend to all that. Research department, the doctor is listening and the staff. We have people resigning here and there. So we are managing, but it's not easy, I must say. It is not easy. We just struggle to keep our heads above the water to make sure that the labor front is fine.
Okay, so you're saying it's not easy. You say you have limited resources. You say your best is not enough. You say you have a lot of struggles. How do we make sure that these things that keep on coming up don't come up? Because if you're saying you're not having it easy and it's tough for you, that means next year we'll be sitting here having the same conversation. 2 years later, we'll still have the same conversation. So how do we move forward?
Yeah, I think the players in the labor industry must all come to accept the commitment in the performance of this function. At the moment, it is the government alone that funded the National Labour Commission.
Okay.
Our other parties, that is the Employers Association and the Labour Union, do the financing of the Labour Committee. The challenge is big. And we know, at least from the conversation we are having now, government is report in payment of allowances to teachers, report in payment of allowances to teachers, not them alone, cluster local government services, almost all the government. It tells you how overburdened the government may be, so that there is a need for other people or other organizations to assist the commission to perform it. And that is what we face now. It is either from government or nothing at all. So that is the problem.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Mr. Asamoah. So, Dr. Nkrumah, you've heard what he's saying, that they are also struggling. They don't have it easy. They don't have the resources, enough resources to mitigate all of that is happening. Do you have any reactions to that?
Well, of course, I guarantee that it's a nationwide situation that, on a lighter note, nowhere cool. And the reality is also that many of the times, National Labour Commission is able to enforce its directives when it comes to the unions. When it comes to government failing on its part, then it becomes difficult for the Labour Commission as well to ensure that government is compelled to do what it has to do. So, if you will recall, when we went on the industrial action, Labour Commission indicated that the industrial action was illegal, and UTAG defiled the order. They went to court. The court ruled against us, and we had to suspend the action. Now, government has an agreement with us to deliver a certain mandate, which Labour Commission is aware of. Government has not delivered on the mandate, and we haven't seen what Labour Commission has done to government as a party that also requires some shipping in line. So that is the challenge we have when it comes to dealing with government, dealing with Labour Commission, and so on and so forth. It may be the case, of course, that is understaffed, the resource base is poor and all of that. But at least when it comes to enforcing agreements that have been signed, I should think that Labour Commission should be in the position to say straight to government that you have not done your part of the bargain. And once we tell truth to each other in the faces, I think we would be able to arrive at some amicable resolutions of some of these matters.
Okay, talking about government not playing their part, joining me on the phone lines is Bright Reku-Burbiri, who is the Deputy Minister for Employment and Labour Relations. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, good morning, and good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners.
Now, you've heard UTAG and others are threatening to strike over fuel allowance. We also have the NLC saying that they don't have it easy. They have limited resources. They say they're doing their best, but their best is not enough. They are really struggling. Okay, so do we have any reactions from your side, starting with that?
Well, since there are two issues on the table, who from UTAG is on the other side, please?
We have Dr. Samuel Nkumban.
Okay, Sam.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. What's happening now is that I will not be in a position to give details of what government is doing now regarding just the immediate causes of the impasse that has come to our attention. Yesterday, thankfully, the Minister for Education and my Minister, the Honorable Bafurwa, had intention to meet with the leadership of the four unions. Unfortunately, because it was very close to call and they had to go to cabinet, they assigned me to meet with them, gather all the information, and when they come this morning, we would have a meeting and see the way forward. As I speak to you, I have not met my minister. I have not met the education minister. And therefore, I'm unable to go ahead with whatever we discussed, and I can't also preempt their actions. But I would want to give assurance to parents, to students, to workers themselves. I mean, the 4 unions, TEU, SSA, UTAG, and all the others, that whatever it is, this we have seen some before. Anytime matters like this come, we have sat at round table, we have had discussions, and we've always been able to find solutions. Now that we are in very deep crisis and trying to come out of it and finding solutions, I believe they are our biggest partners in doing this. And for me, when my ministers come this morning, that's the first thing on our table. I will discuss with them and then brief them what happened, and then we will find solutions. So by close of day, maybe, or tomorrow, we will be able to tell as it is what government intends to do to avert any industrial action. The second, on the National Labour Commission, regarding their funding or resource allocation, you know that it's a state institution. And just like any other state institutions, we've all had to manage. You recall that as part of austerity, every MDA was supposed to do away with a 30% cut. So generally, we have these things that are happening to all state institutions, but we are managing. And National Labour Commission is no exception. They also have confronted and faced with these funding challenges. And from time to time, we try to meet them very, very dire need. But I hope that as and when government resource envelope improves, Labour Commission will be one of the institutions that will be fully resourced. I must say that it is not that we haven't resourced them. I mean, under this government, Labour Commission has been able to open about 3 offices. As we speak now, Labour Commission has an office in Kumasi, which is functioning. It has an office in Takrady. So people hitherto have to come all the way from the western side, Jomoro and all that, now end at Takrady and present their petitions and business going on. All these things have happened under this regime. So I pray and hope that as and when things improve, no institution, and by extension, the NLC, will not be left out. Thank you.
So before you go, you say you've seen it before. You have, dealt with this before. But why do we keep on seeing it? What exactly is the problem?
Very good question. You know, we are dealing with human beings. I always tell people that the only ministry that deals with human beings, that's purely social science, is the Ministry of Labor. So something happens today, you solve it. The next day, another thing happens in similar forms, or they metamorphose into something else. Remember that at any point in life, and for me, doing governance is not different from us we settle in our homes. So if you buy Christmas dresses for your children, for example, in 2021, we are now in 2022. Some may say, oh, last year is good for you, use it. Some may have resources to buy new ones for them. But it's all about dialoguing and talking. And to the extent that you engage, you always get the best outcome. So that's why I said I've seen it before. You resolve the problem today, it comes with either another matter somewhere. And particularly, where we find ourselves now, we are in crisis, honestly speaking. And to that extent, you know that some of the things we intended resolving and so on may not come resolved as anticipated. Whatever it is, we will have challenges, and they are bound to happen. They are so natural course of life. And so I will plead with all stakeholders that we will engage and then together find amicable resolutions to every impasse.
And we hear that. You say that government will do everything possible to avert any industrial action. And you also talk about engaging and talking. But Dr. Nkumban here says there hasn't been any engagement. They only just get directives from the top. So if you had engaged previously, then maybe this wouldn't have been happening. It feels like a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, even yesterday we engaged. Remember that this matter only surfaced some 1 or 2 weeks ago. And for us in the Labour Ministry, we received a letter which was even copied to us, I think Friday or Monday. And yesterday, we did everything possible. Remember, if you want to engage, these are 4 unions, and mostly they are not based in Accra. Even the leadership of UTAG is based in Takwa. So when you invite them, they need a day or two to get to you. Then you get SSA. Currently, I think their leadership is somewhere in Ejumako or something like this. So bringing all this together, it's not like the matter surfaces and immediately you are engaging. You need to consult, get all of them on board, times that will be convenient for everybody. So it's not that simplistic. And trust me, I must say that all these union leaders, including Nkumban, they've been very supportive. Anytime we get to them, they come to the table, even though they also have a constituency that they are experiencing lots of heat. When they come and we explain matters to them, as rational as they are, they understand. So for me, the engagement is key and better late than never. So as we are engaging, I think something good will come out of it. Yesterday's meeting was very fruitful, and I am sure that this morning, as I'm going to brief my ministers, we will move another year of fruitfulness and ensure that we avert this strike that is looming in our face at the moment. So everybody should be calm. Let me end on this note. That don't be panicked. Our wards, some are in school, some are about to graduate, some are yet to go, and so on. And parents become very worried when they hear these kinds of things. I want to use your medium to appeal to everybody that calm will be restored. And we will meet ourselves halfway at all times. We've done that, and we will be able to do so.
Right, Roku Bobri is Deputy Minister for Employment and Labour Relations. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Nkuman, back here in studio, are you satisfied with the answers you just got?
Well, I mean, the reality is this, that, like I said, from April when they varied the fuel thing from gallons to absolute figures we wrote, we didn't get feedback. And so if there is, of course, we have all said that engaging with one another is a critical thing. And so for us to write since April to complain about the fact that you've varied our condition of service, we're entitled to a certain number of gallons of fuel. You say you are no longer giving us in gallons, you are giving us an absolute figure. We didn't get any response. You didn't engage us. And it's the same thing that has happened with the reversal of this 10.99 increment that was announced. So I mean, it shouldn't happen before we go into these engagements. If you plan on doing something, let us have heads up. Prior notice. That is when the engagement becomes useful. But if it happens, you've given the directive and we rise against it and you are engaging us, then it becomes I don't think it's the right steps, in fact, in resolving in matters of this kind.
So where are you willing to meet government?
Well, for us, it is for government to bring us to speed with what it is that it thinks is a reason why maybe a dean should be paid a fuel allowance of 10.99, and then an ordinary lecturer be paid the same allowance at 6.05. We cannot find any rationale for it, and so until that is clarified, we are not in the position to say this is what we are agreeing to and this is what we are not agreeing to.
All right, as you heard the Deputy Minister for Employment and Labour Relations that they will go into a meeting today. We're hopeful that they will bring us solutions.
Yes.
But if they don't bring us solutions,
Well, of course, in the press conference, we indicated that within 7 working days, we needed some feedback.
Yeah.
If not, then the unions will have to reconvene and to look at what it is that we have to be doing going forward.
Okay, Dr. Simon Kuman, thank you so much for your time and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And he's been my guest. He's the UTech President, University of Ghana. I also spoke to Bright Rokobobe, who is the Deputy Minister for Employment and Labour Relations. This is the AM show. We'll be back after this.
Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. We get now into the very hard issues of our economy and where exactly we're headed. Is this ship redeemable? And with an IMF package, when are we getting it? What is this going to mean moving forward? Well, we have all of those salient discussions on our economy and IMF program, debt restructuring and otherwise from different dimensions right here as we get into our big stories. Joining us, Professor Lord Mensah. He's a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Of course, we have others who will join the conversation and share their thoughts on these all-important matters. Professor Mensah, a very good morning to you, sir. Hello, Prof.
Hello, can you hear me, please?
I can hear you loud and clear. Hold. Right, thank you for joining. Do hold for me. We also have Sairam Kawo, senior lecturer at the UCC School of Business. Sairam Kawo, a very good morning to you, sir. All right. We'll also be joined by Dr. Cassiel Atto Forson, former Deputy Finance Minister, ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament. All right. So let me start the conversation with Professor Mensah. On the back of the latest developments, we know that the IMF is in town. We're going to have 10 days of deliberations with them. And so far, from our end, the Ghanaian end, it's been optimistic. It's been positive. But when you listen to what Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta had to say yesterday, generally, do you get that sense of optimism?
Yeah, from his briefing, I mean, clearly he's more optimistic. But then, for an ordinary Ghanaian who could not feel the macroeconomic growth that we had, somewhere before the COVID, thinking the economy was still hanging at the macro front without seeing it in its pocket, would definitely not be optimistic. Because we had the economic growth, we saw economic growth about 7%, thereabout, somewhere just before the COVID. And then the COVID, the economy plummeted, to the extent of getting to zero, thereabout. And it has started lifting itself. Now that we find ourselves in 4, the finance minister indicated that the economy, in as much as we are finding difficulty, has started, lifting itself up. But then having that history in our memory as the ordinary Ghanaian, obviously, the 4% growth, we know very well that it will not trickle down to, our pocket. So the economy in general has been, at the macro front, realizing some time ago good indicators and all those recently that we have inflation going up to 6%, exchange rate,
33.9.
33.9, exchange rate lifting itself above the 10. Before then, even before the COVID, we saw serious improvement. But then the ordinary Ghanaian was waiting for the economy to reflect in his pocket. But it couldn't reflect. Then we started having this problem of a force majeure, like COVID, and then, this Ukraine war coming, somewhere in January, February this year. So effectively, from his end, he's managing the macroeconomy, and he seemed to be positive about the signals on the ground. And of course, he being the minister and the engagement they have with IMF, obviously it is anticipated that he is more optimistic. But from the ordinary Ghanaian perspective, I don't see any optimistic, kind of certainty in the whole thing. But you see, the engagement with IMF, I see it to be more or less long overdue, because if a country that is well prepared to engage IMF, we should know very well that, our debt is going to be the main issue on the table. Because if you go back to the IMF website and the World Bank website, in July 2021, they did debt sustainability analysis on Ghana. And for overall debt, both domestic and then, external debt, they classified us to be highly distressed. And even on the external debt alone, they gave us the same classification. They did not separate the external from the internal. So the internal wasn't that sure. So effectively, as far as our debt sustainability is concerned, 2021, we were distressed. And then every country that goes to the international market, I think it was only this year that we couldn't visit the market. There is a regular debt sustainability analysis you must do. And this debt sustainability analysis will give you a balance as to how much financing you will need. And at the same time, what you'll be able to pay. So if, as a country, we tend to be doing continuous debt sustainability analysis, at a point in time that our borrowing was, hitting 80% and above of our GDP, we should have, gotten the clue or gotten the hint that we've gotten to a point where our debt is not sustainable anymore. That should be a regular, annual thing that must be done by the finance ministry to determine how much we can borrow and how much we can pay. So effectively, now the IMF is going to do that sustainability analysis. I don't know where that is coming from. Because if we do prudent financial management, public financial management, you should ascertain your ability, how much you'll be able to pay, and how much you can borrow. So the engagement with IMF means saying that they're now doing debt sustainability analysis on Ghana. If I go to their website and I see Ghana's debt, both domestic and the overall debt, being distressed, from 2021 July to now, I see some, fiscal commitments from government. The minister was not that clear on the impact of those fiscal commitments. Because somewhere in February, in March, we got a brief from the minister indicating that there's going to be some sacrifice as far as discretionary expenditures are concerned. He was supposed to give us the indication as to how much we've been able to save as a result of some of these measures that were put in place. Somewhere in March. We didn't see all these things. So effectively, it is something that we must worry. But I think strategically,
right,
the IMF is also looking at our posture, in our next year's budget. Whether we're going to be aggressive in our spending, and I know very well that we can't afford to be aggressive. We can't, not at all. So they want to see our posture in the next budget, how government is going to go about its revenue enhancement strategies, whether to improve on I think the minister indicated it, whether to improve on the e-levy, or possibly looking at the discretionary expenditures and all those, how they're going to continuously track this, expenditure. It is very, very tempting. If IMF should give us hearing within this time to the time that we will read the budget, it will be tempting to have that kind of behavior to say that we have IMF backing And as a result of that, that policy credibility that we've been calling for every time, we have it, and then we may expand our debt again. So I think strategically, the fund is looking at, tactical delay in a way to look at how we position ourselves as a country to go on with the program. But as a country, we cannot go on with the program when we continue to have this aggressive nature of borrowing and then reading budget, which we know very well that the financing of the deficit will be a problem. And all
Right.
this. So effectively, I think strategically, the plan is waiting to look at how we position our budget for the 2023. That will be ready in November this year to accept the program. Because, if you look at the history, the program has always been on reduce your expenditure and then, find other avenues of raising money. If you look at the posture of this administration, somewhere 2019 when we exited,
Before we get into further details, we'll have ample time to do that. My apologies. I just wanted us to tease out the underlying factors. You get it. A general assessment of what was presented to us yesterday. And then from there, we'll develop on those points.
That's fine.
Thank you. So just hold for me. Let me bring in Sairam Kawa, Senior Lecturer, UCC School of Business. Sairam, do tell me, we've been told that our economy is experiencing an uptake, or very soon we're going to see an uptake in our economic fortunes. Are you convinced?
I am convinced that, yes, we will get some positive feedback, but not very soon. That should be in the second quarter of 2023. That is when we should be getting some returns on the negotiations that we are making now and then the steps that we are putting in place. Because our debt sustainability issue must be analyzed very well, and then the IMF will then determine the way forward as to whether they're going to grant us the amount that we need or they're going to reduce or increase it over the negotiation period. So it's good that we have the managers of the economy telling us that, yes, things are going to change, which we believe will change, but not immediately.
Let me ask you, does that optimism, yes, the finance minister was very optimistic, just as the president has sounded as well. You say that, we may need to look past this year into next year to see how things go. But on these two crucial fronts, when he talks about the fact that they are looking, the economic management team is looking at getting us back on our lending prowess, so to speak, getting back on the international lending market in 2 years. Is that feasible? And again, when there is talk about a budget on November the 15th, hard decision, hard date given, confirmed, when in fact our negotiations with the IMF is not complete. We've not decided yet, as the IMF is now talking about debt restructuring and are not being there. When you look at these two dynamics, are we not overshooting it?
I couldn't have agreed with you more on these two dynamics when we are trying to get back to the international markets where we can borrow money to do what we want to do. But then we are also negotiating now. And then we want to put out issues that have not been agreed on and then put it in our budget. We might be rushing things and we might go back to the same situation that we find ourselves in. Ghana once went epic and our debts have been cancelled totally. We have money that we have misused. Things that are supposed to be used, things that we are supposed to use the money for, we've not been able to do that. And now we are going back. Instead of taking our time to go through the mill and make sure that we do the right thing, we might be jumping the gun now by putting the issues down in the next budget that will be read in November. To me,
we need to take our time in doing this and getting it right so that we will not go back to sing the same song. Going back into the international market, why are we so much focused on going to borrow? We are not focused on increasing productivity and increasing exports in our country, generating revenue from our country so that we can do things. It looks like our focus is so much based on getting loans to do the things that we are supposed to do. Our loan strategies now are not working for us. We borrow to pay debt. And once we are borrowing to pay debt, we are not working hard on our own to generate money from the loans that we have taken to pay those ones. Then we are perpetually going to be indebted all the time. And so the managers, if they are not telling us what we are doing within to generate revenue in order to pay these loans, but we are just focusing our minds on going to the international market to borrow and all those things, then that is very questionable on my part.
Does it send the wrong signal then? Because when I heard it, my thinking was, okay, so we're eager to get out of the doldrums so we can borrow again. Is that the same signal you get? And is it bad? Because economists will also tell you that borrowing isn't necessarily bad. You can have huge debt, but it depends on what you do with your debt. So where do you stand on that?
I get that particular feeling that the signal that is being sent, we want to go and borrow and all those things, is problematic. Yes, we agree that borrowing is not bad. Borrowing is good. You can have very huge debt, and then once you use that particular debt in productive ventures, and the debts are paying for themselves, then it is good for the business, it's good for the economy. But in our country, Ghana, we go and borrow and put in unproductive areas of the economy where these debts are not paying for themselves. We have neglected the use of the sinking fund that is placed in the Public Financial Management Act. That is supposed to accumulate funds so that when the debts are supposed to be paid, this amount in the sinking fund could be used for the payment of these debts. We have neglected on that. So we borrow money, do the thing, and the things do not pay for itself. So if we take money and put out roads, hospitals, markets, they should be able to generate the necessary funding that we will use for the payment of this loan. If we are not thinking about that, but we want to go to the market and borrow to pay debt, then our interest payments on these debts are going to overshadow the main debt itself because we are not generating value from the loans that we have taken. It is good for the managers of the economy, the presidency and the Ministry of Finance, to take tough decisions that if we have taken this loan, the loan should be able to pay for itself. So the last time he hinted, the Minister of Finance hinted on that particular one that, yes, the Temamoto Way extension that they are going to do, when they finish doing it, they are going to tow that particular road so that the tolls will be able to pay for that. That is the way to go. We need to take tough decisions. We have some monies that came out of the HIPIC initiative that was taken from the World Bank and other donor agencies. But these monies have been given to businesses. It looks like free money that is given to them. There is nowhere in the world that people will give out money free of charge for businesses to use when we don't even check whether they are using these monies appropriately. So we need to change our ways of doing things. Otherwise, when we are talking about let's go for loans, and we are not putting it in the productive sectors of the economy, then I'm sorry, whatever we are doing, we will go back again to the IMF in some years to come.
Sarah, hold for me. Just hold for me. Let me bring in Dr. Cassiel Atto-Forson into the conversation as well. Doc, a very good morning to you. All right, we'll get back to Dr. Atto-Forson shortly. Let me engage Professor Mensah on these matters arising. So like you've heard Sairam say, for him, he finds some of these as surprising, the optimism. But the optimism is there. When you look at the fact that a 5-member committee is going to be set up in the coming days to cover the entire finance sector, from banking to insurance and all of that, and you also have Ken Oforiatta, finance minister, in there. I just want to ask this briefly before I move on to my substantive question. Are you comfortable with the finance minister spearheading this? And the only reason I'm posing that question is some say, on the back of what we've seen, even if he remains finance minister, he shouldn't be the person leading the charge. Do you think differently?
Yeah, I do. If you have a committee that is looking at the possibility of Ghana's way of absorbing some of the economy in general, absorbing some of the possible restructurings that are likely to happen, I think it should be an independent, committee. But for me, where I sit, I don't even support the idea of the committee. If we are doing debt sustainability analysis, and we also want to know the impact of some of these haircuts on our economy, because this is an economy where investment has been skewed towards government, bills and notes. Clearly, if you look at the Pensions Regulatory Act and the portfolio allocations that are done for pension fund managers strictly, and the range that has been provided in terms of allocation, you clearly see that chunk of them goes to government bills and notes. Now, if you take the natural course of economics, look at the asset side, they have been concentrating more of their investment into government bills and those as well. So there's a serious, there will be a serious impact if there should be restructuring and at the end of the day, we don't really go into it well. So I was thinking that the debt sustainability analysis that will be done should take into perspective the country as a whole, right? Our debt situation, especially the domestic debt, situation. And then also look at the impact of the economy. And then possibly look at across the various institutions. If you profile, our bigger creditors in this country to the government, instruments, we should be able to deduce and say that this is the possible, absorption that some of these banks can do, some of these insurance companies and some of these pension funds can do in terms of haircut, so that at least we don't, look at committee. In this country, what committee report have we implemented so far effectively? So I don't think we may need a committee. All analysis we're going to do, as far as the economy is concerned, as far as the institutions that are lending to the government is concerned, we should embed that into our debt sustainability analysis. But rather, if we look at committee, I don't know what a committee is coming to do. So for me, the idea of having a committee in itself sometimes can slow down, the necessary analysis we're supposed to do on the economy to position ourselves for this IMF.
But Prof, he talks about the fact, and I'd like to quote him here. He says these 5 people will immediately get to work to engage key stakeholders in the financial services sector, additional to ongoing engagements with civil society organizations, social partners, that is labor unions, employers, and others. You realize that we have quite a situation on our hands. The lecturers, for example, are up in arms again in terms of certain benefits that have been denied them. All these conversations are ongoing, even as we access, hopefully, an IMF program. Isn't it only fitting to have people, industry players, play this role side by side so that we can kill 2 birds, so to speak, with 1 stone?
That is different from the debt sustainability analysis he's talking about. I was looking at a situation where we've gone beyond, this engagement, and possibly the government goes on to do debt restructuring. Mm-hmm. That is what I was looking at. The 5-member committee he talked about, that is different from engaging the labor engaging all other stakeholders.
No, but he makes mention of the fact that these people are going to have that ancillary role as well. That's what I'm making reference to.
Oh, okay, right. So then in that case, what is going to happen is that possibly by extension, they are looking at, how we can control our expenditure, and then possibly the stakeholders making some sacrifice. Of course, the sacrifice won't be, with the stakeholders alone. That, as mentioned in the in the but then is the Ghanaian, economy in general that must, sacrifice, in this time era, because at the end of the day, whatever the situation may be, government must cut down expenditure, and possibly cutting down expenditure can even freeze, salaries for some time. And so, by extension of this debt analysis, the committee is consulting the academia, all those labor units in the economy. I mean, it makes sense that way. But then, where I'm coming from is that if we are going to do debt sustainability analysis, then that committee, that the 5-member committee, shouldn't have the mandate of looking at our debt. But however, the debt sustainability analysis that the IMF is doing should be encompassed, should be in such a way that they do the analysis of the economy and then also take into consideration the creditors of the creditors of the economy as well. So effectively, that's where what I'm looking at.
So, of course, he's writing, the finance minister, on the 3.4 percentage growth outturn in quarter one, 4.8 in quarter two, to say that, look, like I intimated earlier, things are not as bad as we may think, and that things are going to get better, maybe sooner rather than later, contrary to what we've been told initially. But when you get to the bit about debt restructuring, which you've been talking about, it is clear from what he says that no, it's practically not been tabled. We've also heard from the IMF come to say that it is early days yet for us to be talking about debt restructuring. Yet, that question has been put out there. I remember the last time I spoke with you, you did mention that we didn't have a choice. We would have to restructure. I still love that opinion.
Oh, yes. I mean, we have no choice. You see, government, the external market, looking at the situation on the ground now, America just increased their interest rate structures. So if you look at the premium that external financier to our economy will be looking out for, I mean, they may not look at our economy for now. So the local market is more or less a lender of a sort and of a last resort. And if government is struggling, to raise money to pay its debt locally, and the environment being the last kind of resort when it comes to, raising money, obviously, whatever you have, you may have to negotiate with the creditor, because the creditor may have to understand the situation on the ground. The creditor, looking at the ground, may see that, look, if I don't take that haircut, or if I don't take the possible reduction in the principal or the interest, I may lose my money completely. And that is what the processes of, getting to restructure. It happened that the country is about to default. If you look at our downgrade from triple C to C, double C, the signals are there that government is likely to default. So if government is likely to default, and at default, you lose your principal and your interest payment. If government tables restructuring, where you may get about 90% of your investment, as an investor, you will go for it. So it's not that government will do restructuring or government will not do restructuring. We have no choice. If you look at the signals on the ground, everything shows that it's about time we renegotiate some of our debt. And that is the main thing on the table. And the finance minister, looking at sometimes his speeches, the dynamics, the back and forth, the same finance minister who told us that we are not going to IMF. But it turns up that, we've ended up with IMF. So maybe we may not trust him, when it comes to all the things he put out there. I'm telling you that the situation on the ground, government has no choice than to restructure or renegotiate some of its debt. Those that are of short term, there's a need for looking at possibly extending it long term. Those that are of higher interest to a certain level, there's a need to tell the creditor that, look, this time these things are difficult. You either take this or we default. That is how it is. So it's not like, we're going to restructure or we are not going to restructure. The external market has been blocked on us as a result of, the situation on the ground. The likelihood of payment when it comes to the dollar is difficult. So that is why the external market is not opening up for us. And it's not even Ghana alone. If you run across the African continent, the African continent has got to a point where instead of rolling out our export enhanced policies, we saw the Eurobond market to be an easy avenue to get in dollar to manage our exchange rate. So effectively, most of the African countries are going to be blocked on the, the international market. These things have been bubbling for so many years. The time is now. In Ghana, though the domestic market being the last lender of the sort, government may not want to default.
Right.
And as a result of that, the best they can do is to renegotiate on some of the debt. So it's not like there will be restructuring or there won't be restructuring. IMF, sometimes they are diplomatic. And being, an entity that normally takes decisions based on facts, they may want to get a detail of it before they come out. When you ask them whether there's going to be debt restructuring, immediately they landed at the airport. You won't get any feedback from them until they find out what is going on. But I'm telling you, on the grounds that government has no choice, one of the main things on the table would be to restructure it.
All right.
Government to have breathing space in the economy.
All right. Prof, hold for me. Let me bring in Sairam Kawo. 2 points. It was a 7-point focus for Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta on which he expatiated. And 2 of those points are 3 and 4. Strengthening monetary and exchange rate policies. And 4, building strong financial institutions. The same Finance Minister told us yesterday that, and I want to quote him here, we simply have not reached any agreement with the fund on the parameters of any debt operations as we are in the process of completing the debt sustainability analysis. And then he talks about protecting the financial sector and not taking unilateral decisions that risk undermining the smooth operation of the country, economically speaking. On these 2 points, what would you like to see as this committee gets to work? Strengthening monetary and exchange rate policies and building strong financial institutions. And I ask that because of the threat of debt restructuring.
All right, thank you very much. Strengthening the exchange rate regime and then a strong financial institution that we have in our country is something that we cannot compromise on. And we have no option than to make sure that we do that. It is one of the mandates of the Bank of Ghana to do. And if you see the Bank of Ghana Act, it states that they must ensure that we have a stable foreign exchange regime and then a stable monetary policies that are there. And then we have a strong financial institutions that would be able to foster business in the economy. Bank of Ghana is also supposed to create employment and make sure that inflation is minimized. So looking at this, it is there. It is their job to do. They are not supposed to wait for IMF to come and do that. I am even surprised that is part of the points that they are taking to IMF. These are things that we are supposed to do in our country without external involvement. And so we have left our forex market open. We allow individuals, companies to trade in the currency anyhow. There are some online trading platforms that are available trading in our currency. You go to the hotels, they are trading in the foreign exchange. We have black markets booming all around the corners of the country. You can go anywhere and they don't demand any document from you, and they do that. So it is time the Bank of Ghana, with the Ministry of Finance, put up a strong team to go around the country and do some of these things. One of the things that maybe that will be achieving is the 5-member committee that is being set up to go around the country and educate people and elicit views from the general population. If the financial system is broken down in our country, that is the end of Ghana. It's a very important institution that we need to protect with all our blood. And so the people who are working in the financial institutions must be people of integrity. We must have a lot of trust in them. Unlike what happened during the financial cleanup exercise, where Bank of Ghana gave some money to some of the banks which are supposed to be a relief for them to beat up their liquidity. And these banks use the same amount of money to establish other banks that we have. Some have polished their balance sheet to make it look good. Meanwhile, in reality, these things are not working. It means that the people who are working in the financial institutions, Bank of Ghana and the Finance Ministry must have a second look at it. The training of these people and their integrity test must be done so that we have a very strong institution that are available. We have today the banks calling people that they qualify for a loan and they should come for loan, when the people are not the ones who are going for it. We have situations where they will even call you and tell you that you have qualified for a loan. Come and take the loan and go and do a business, go and pay school fees and all those things. Once they are doing these things, it means that they are doing it for only the interest income they want to earn and boost their profitability over the period, and not looking at the soundness of what they are getting. We need to have a situation where the banks give out loans to people, but they have to follow up and educate the people on how to use the loans and monitor whatever they are doing. Most of the banks do not do. Some of the credit analysis that they are supposed to do on the customers before they give the loans, they do not give that, because they feel you are on a government payroll and they have a relationship with your organization, and then you sign an agreement with them and your salary will pass through their account, so they don't care about it. What about situations where people lose their jobs and they cannot pay this amount of money? And so the strengthening of our institutions is very key, and then the forest market is something that we must take a second look at.
Right.
And in every corner of the country, the police or the whatever institution that is responsible, the Bank of Ghana needs to partner them and arrest people, prosecute people. The forest bureaus must be mandated to do the right thing.
Right.
The processes when you go to the bank to have your forest exchange for you takes much longer time. They must try to simplify it for individuals who can go to these places and do it. That way, we can have a strong financial system that is running in the country. As we speak, when you look at the data that is available, Ghana have one of the weakest financial systems around Africa, the Sub-Saharan Africa. Our financial systems are weak. The issues of men's gold, GKM, and the rest that came up are clear signals that we have weak financial systems, and this controlled fraud that we see over time, we're taking advantage of the weaknesses that we have in our regulatory system and the lack of supervision that we have. And they took advantage of these things, and we need to control it.
Right. Sairam, we're immensely grateful you joined us for the conversation. Some very insightful thoughts you've shared there. Sairam Kawo, a senior lecturer with the UCC School of Business. Let me go back to Professor Lord Mensah, and after that we'll be bringing you Dr. Cassiel Attoforsen for his take on this matter as well. So interesting dynamics that we have to look at, that we have to contend with. We're looking at the medium-term macro-fiscal framework, as Ken Ofori-Atta put it. At the same time, we're looking at our debt sustainability analysis, and the IMF has said time without number that we need to be sustainable in terms of debt for a program. Then Ken Ofori-Atta says the country needs a viable domestic financial system to support its developmental program. Per your analysis, Prof, how do we get to that point of debt sustainability to kickstart this program? Because without it, it will be very difficult to get a program from the IMF, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you see, it depends on the government's posture. See, what brings about the debt? It has to do with, deficit finance. Government, after 2019 that we exited, when we were with IMF, we're almost penetrating around 7% to our GDP when it comes to budget deficit. That means that the debt financing was quite gradually, reducing. And then in the end, immediately we exited the IMF, we jumped to 11% budget deficit to our GDP. The next year, we came to around 15%. By the time you realize, we were doing about, 13 before 15. And it's the financing that causes, this debt financing. And even this year, the testimony was clear. I mean, somewhere in last November's budget for the 2022. Clearly, government foresaw that, the international market would not be good for us to borrow from. So they tilted, the financing of the budget deficit to the domestic market. And so that tells you that it's the way we manage our budget that will, call for control in terms of debt. If we continue to position ourselves in such a way that we always want to aggressively spend, right, to know that, yes, the economy is doing well because we've spent this amount and we've spent that amount. Obviously, the expenditure may not be hitting certain key areas of the economy that will spur up the growth that we need. So we may have to look at how we spend in the economy. When we decided to control this year our budget, what did we do? The finance minister in the last the briefing that we're discussing now indicated that they started giving the signals of cutting, some discretionary expenditure. What happened last March? He gave the signal that some purchases of new vehicles and all those, they're going to, abandon them and then look at, some other discretionary expenditure to the extent of capital expenditure, being reduced by 2/3 or so of the target. These are all things that if we continue, and we should take it as a project, we shouldn't look at it, this year because we won the IMF program, that is why we are positioning ourselves, in that manner.
Right.
It should be a continuous process for the next, 10 years. And that should be able to take us, out of the economic, situation that we find ourselves in now, with debt swallowing the entire country. And what is happening is that you cannot get up and say one day or in a particular year, because if you take, an economic output and you relate it to our debt, if you freeze all economic activities and then you look at what is being generated in the economy, it should be able to pay our debt in a year. But we've not got it to the 1%, 100% yet. But you cannot freeze economic activity. You may have to look at it as a project. So that's why anytime we go to IMF, our best way somehow to put the economy in its position. Because within that period, they're able to control our budget deficit. They are able to control how much the government takes of the Bank of Ghana. They are able to control so many things that they think when the government has a hand to it, it spurs up what we call the inefficient, expenditure. Because what has brought us so far It's how government is spending. But the spending is not, hitting the nerve of the economy to drive growth. That is the problem.
Right.
So while we find ourselves with IMF, we should be able to look at our expenditure line. And I always call it, looking at it as a system. The economic management system. You are
and maybe, Prof, that could be your final point. If you could wrap up on that point for me, please.
Okay, then, please.
Right.
You are managing by, making an input, which is the expenditure.
Right.
But then you always have to look at how this input into revenue generation. Because when you are spending and the expenditure is not building up into revenue generation, at the end of the day, you end up borrowing more and you continue to borrow. And that is why, the last time we went to the Eurobond market, that's somewhere in 2007, we cannot even pinpoint. That was the first time.
Right.
We cannot even pinpoint the exact thing we came to do with the money as we sit here. So effectively, it has to do with the way we spend and the way. So I see it to be kind of a project. We should look at it for the next 5 years to say that the way and manner we're going to spend, it's supposed to be 1-to-1. If we put in 1 unit of expenditure, we expect that it should be able to generate another unit of revenue for the country.
Professor Lord Mensah, grateful for your time. He is with the University of Ghana Business School, and he's saying that we should be looking at projections over the next 5 years as far as an IMF program is concerned. Let's now bring in Dr. Ato Forson, former Deputy Minister, ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament. Doc, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning.
I'm sorry for holding you for quite a bit.
I'm okay. I'm okay. Occupational hazard.
Right. Thank you so much for understanding. When you look at what Ken Ofori-Atta told us yesterday, he gave optimism. He spoke, for example, 2 things that I've already mentioned. November 15 for a budget reading, a statement on the back of, hopefully, an IMF agreement, some sort of agreement. Then, within 2 years, to be able to hit the international lending market again. In fact, he talks about a Ghanaian miracle, going back to look at the Irish Celtic miracle. Were you that optimistic?
My brother, to be honest with you, I'm not. And I get worried by the day. Because a miracle can only come if you prepare yourself to embrace what it takes to bring the miracle. In the case of Ghana, we need a complete buy-in from the ordinary Ghanaian, from the civil society, the political class, cutting across the political divide, the media, and everybody before that miracle happens. But I'm sad to say that the government of the day is failing to lead that process where everyone get to understand that we are in a position where total sacrifice will be required from all of us to put the country's economy back on track.
Where total sacrifice will mean what exactly?
The fiscal consolidation that we would need to bring the miracle, the economic decisions that economic managers will have to take will come at a cost, painful cost. It will increase the hardship. It will mean that certain decisions will have to be taken. That decision will certainly not be palatable. But in the end, after some years, that will be the bitter medicine that we'll have to take before we get to the level where we will see a complete miracle, where we'll say that our economy is back on track, unfortunately. But you see, the government is hiding all of this from us, the ordinary people. We are feeling the pain without the president addressing the nation, without the head of state, the one that Ghanaians voted for, the father of the republic. He should be able to tell us the exact position of the country and where we are going. Sadly, he's keeping away from us. That, for me, will be the center of everything. If a miracle will have to happen, That must happen first. And that will mean, as a nation, we should be ready to take that decision. A decision that will bring short-term pain, short to medium term, because it's going to be 3 years of hardship, intense hardship, before it gets better. Unfortunately, I'm not saying that, so I'm not optimistic. Then the second point.
So just to clarify, you're saying we're going to suffer 3 years of extreme discomfort before it gets better. Is that what you said?
Big time discomfort. 3 years, if not more.
Okay, please go ahead.
More, before it gets better. Then my second point has to do with the fact that the managers of the economy, who should know better, doesn't convince me anytime they speak. They don't seem to appreciate the magnitude of the problems that we have as a country. And so therefore, if you don't know the problem, the right sickness of the country, you cannot give me a good prescription of what will solve my disease, the sickness that we are in. So until you go to the right doctor, for you to get the right medication, you are doomed. If you are sick, obviously, from maybe a chronic disease and somebody is treating you with paracetamol, your situation will get worse and you can die very early. Unfortunately, that is what it is. We started warning this administration to go to hospital and to seek a medical care early. They said they would treat themselves. And they said, be careful, you end up going to the hospital, the IMF, in an ambulance. Today, we are going into the IMF program in an ambulance. Our economy has simply collapsed. The Ghanaian economy is in big trouble. They are failing to tell us. We need to understand that we are not in a good shape at all, and the situation will get worse before it gets better. Then, my brother, the minister in his statement made certain key points. The first one is they are looking at getting an IMF program by November. Well, I doubt. I have my key doubt. From now to November is obviously about a month and a half before the budget will be read. 6 weeks. The IMF is yet to complete the debt sustainability analysis. That's the first point. If you complete the debt sustainability analysis and comes to a conclusion that the debt is unsustainable, that we all know is unsustainable because obviously we in opposition, we've done our own debt sustainability analysis and we know the debt is not sustainable. But obviously the fund will have to confirm that. So when they confirm that, they will need to come to some form of understanding how to do this, what we call debt treatment.
So quick clarity again, quick clarity. So from where you sit, you can tell that the fund is going to, determine that our debt is simply not sustainable.
Ghana's public debt is unsustainable.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
I can say that government will have to agree on in a form of debt treatment. What form of debt treatment would it be? Considering the kind of debt that we owe, DSSI, Debt Service Suspension Initiative, is off the table because our debt is largely owed to commercial debt holders. DSSI is equivalent to HAPIC, so that is not the option that Ghana can take. The only option left for us as a republic is debt restructuring. You restructure your debt, then you have to make a decision to either restructure your domestic or external, or maybe both. That decision must be made. And remember, the IMF will not lend to a country with an unsustainable debt. So as soon as you have an unsustainable debt, the negotiation becomes a matter of a decision on the debt treatment before you can continue the negotiation. So the next 6 weeks, I do not believe that decision can be made. And the IMF is here only for 10 days. They will leave, go back to Washington, and obviously the government team will have to move to Washington to go and continue the negotiation there. And probably they will have to come back 2 or 3 times before a final decision will happen. 15th of November doesn't seem feasible for me.
So it's not realistic?
It is not. Because look, after the decision is made, obviously government will have to make an announcement. And that announcement will mean that you have to call for creditors committee. And the creditors committee will need to come to some form of understanding. It's a lot of legal work and it's a lot of financial work. So you need an independent legal arbiter and you will need an independent financial arbiter. The two put together, you will need to have an understanding the way you are going. That would take like 6 months. I do not believe that that decision can be made now and a concrete understanding will be made. But fast forward, what is also very critical is for Ghana to understand the magnitude of debt relief that we will require for the country to come back to sustainable debt limits before an IMF program. So if the IMF come and say that, look, because of your debt levels, you need a debt relief worth, let's say, $5 billion. Then it's up to you as a government to decide who you are giving the relief to, who you are getting the relief from. Either you are getting it from domestic, external, or a combination of both. That decision must be made by the Republic. The fund will not make that decision for you. So that decision must be made. Now, I am surprised that the nation is, or the Minister of Finance is creating impression that within the next 6 weeks, that decision can be made. They will rush us through it and we'll end up making big mistakes. They should tread cautiously and make sure that this decision that they want to make, this decision, he has to make it in the interest of the country. And he should not make that decision alone. It's only a minister responsible for finance. The president and the government have 2 years left in their mandate. They should not take a decision that will destroy the future of the country going forward. That decision must bring on board the academia, it must bring on board the civil society, it must bring on board the political class, the divide of the political class. And then all of us will sit on the table and make a decision that will preserve the forward march of our country. That is important. Then the issue that he raised, that they intend to go back to the market, hopefully within 2 to 3 years. I don't know where he's getting his hope from, but I can assure the Minister of Finance that, Honorable Minister, the truth is you have broken the yoke of confidence and trust the market, particularly creditors, has in the Ghanaian economy. You've broken it. To rebuild it, you will need years, a minimum of 5 years. I say this for a reason that, look, today your credit rating is in C, not triple C, but double C. In fact, on the day of your announcement of debt restructuring, it means you have defaulted, and so your credit rating will move to D. Mark it on the wall. Any day they announce officially, Fitch, S&P, Moody's will downgrade Ghana to D. So D is looking at us. Hopefully by first quarter next year, Ghana will be rated D by credit rating agencies. It will take you a minimum of 1 year to move from D to triple C. Another 1 year to go to another level. So by the time you get the confidence back, it won't be 2 to 3 years. It will certainly be more than 3 years. And so I'm looking at 5 years or more. But I'm surprised. And it looks like the government's main objective, why they are taking this country through this painful restructuring that is staring at us, based on the fact that they have borrowed left, right, and center and destroyed the economy in a way that is so shocking and unbelievable, is for them to go back again to borrow. This government wants to go back to the market and borrow. And I can't just get it. This is the very attitude that has destroyed our livelihood. This is the very attitude that has destroyed this economy of ours. And you still want to go back there and borrow in 2 to 3 years. I mean, what book are they reading? Who is in the room actually advising these people? I just don't get it. This MPP administration has run this country down based on their attitude of borrowing. The debt appetite is unbelievable. I don't think we should encourage it. The focus is not to go out there and borrow again.
Right.
The focus is for you to fix your fiscal, and the fiscal needs to be fixed and fixed now. That is where the problem is.
All right. Let's take a quick look at this. We're all talking about debt sustainability. And of course, I do not know whether that can be decoupled from debt restructuring, as we've been talking about, because yes, our debt must be sustainable, and now some have suggested you must, like you must restructure your debt. But interestingly, yesterday the finance minister told us that there's been no conclusion on that, especially as we heard from one of the directors of the IMF, speaking openly that no, it would be early days yet. It would be too early, in fact, for Ghana to go down that road. Are we missing something? Is it definite that we'll go down that road?
What do you expect the fund to say? I mean, the fund is a diplomatic institution. It is not for the IMF to make an official pronouncement that Ghana is going to restructure its debt. It's the government that has to make that statement. The minister will certainly have to manage expectation or manage the public outcry. I mean, the passion out there. He has to manage it. And so he has to start, slowing down gradually and build that confidence in a way that people will not be too worried about it. So he will have to say that. And I don't fault him for saying that. But you see, I can put my reputation on the line. Ghana cannot avoid debt restructuring. Take it from me. Our debt is simply unsustainable based on our behavior. The minister has borrowed in the last 6 years more than any government in the history of the Republic since Kwame Nkrumah. This administration attitude of debt accumulation is just not acceptable. As a result, Ghana's debt is unsustainable. You can apply any sustainability formula, whether academic, practical, IMF, or whatever. You can do market access DSA is unsustainable. What do you call it? Low-income country DSA, their sustainability analysis, Ghana is not sustainable. You can go and apply, an academic, methodology, probably econometrics model. It will still tell you our debt is unsustainable. The numbers are there to show. You can conduct an ability to pay analysis. You will notice that our debt is simply unsustainable. We are in deep trouble. So I'm saying that yes, the fund will say that it is too early yet. They never said that it will not happen. Obviously, as I agree with them, they will have to do their own independent analysis based on the data the government has given to them. Independent analysis based on the data the government has given to them. And then come into the realization that the debt is unsustainable first. And second and most important point is that they will have to agree with the government the quantum of debt relief that the country would need to get from creditors to make the debt sustainable before they can come in. So they cannot jump the gun and say that the debt is unsustainable. Because as soon as they mention that, they have to talk about the fact that Ghana needs X amount of money to bring it back to sustainable limit. And they are not ready yet to make that statement. Let's give them time, but I know that this is something that we can't avoid. Let's prepare ourselves as a country. I would like to be transparent with the people of Ghana by telling them, everyone, that please be ready, because restructuring is inevitable. It will hit us today, tomorrow, or someday. It is coming.
Debt restructuring is coming. In a minute, I just want you to address this because Ken Oforiatta also talks about restoring macroeconomic stability and that being the goal of the team. And then there is also that commitment to ensuring that a comprehensive package is negotiated with the aim of restoring and sustaining that same stability. Just to confirm, so this cannot possibly be achieved in these negotiations before November the 15th when he tables a new budget, when he supposes he will table a new budget.
Okay, so key points. Based on the fiscal situation we have, sustainability will not come on a silver platter. You will need some action to bring the country's instability, in quote, economic instability, back to stability. You need some action. For example, because of huge government expenditures, our expenditure levels are way higher than the revenues that we raise. And so therefore, government faces a decision to be made. One, are you going to raise additional taxes to increase the revenue, and obviously that will catch up with the expenditure to balance your budget? Or you are going to cut expenditure to meet the revenues that you are getting to balance your budget? That is a key decision. I believe the time has come for the government to review its lifestyle. The kind of expenditures that is going through our budget need to be relooked at. Some of government flagship programs have been wasteful and useless, some of them, and there is a need for us to revisit them. An example is planting for food and jobs. We are spending so much money, yet we are not seeing the impact. Can't we go back to the table and review it? There's the need for us to review it. We've talked about one district, one factory, where we give huge tax exemptions to some of these companies. Why can't we go back and review it to see whether it's working well or not? And some of them, we are giving them subsidies on the loans they are taking from the bank. The state ends up paying a percentage on behalf of these companies. Is it the way to go? Why so? What is the selection criteria? And is it something we should continue? There are key questions out there. I believe the expenditure needs to be looked at. Then the issue of revenue. We don't really need to increase taxes, in quote, the rate of taxes. But I believe they are low-hanging fruits in terms of compliance. GRA can do better than what they are doing, just by implementing the very laws that they have without increasing the rate. If they sit tight and you give them strong supervision, they will deliver what you need to get. So that is two. Then if you throw out budget deficit, how do you finance it? Is the government going to go to the central bank to always get the central bank to lend to them in the form of printing of currency? Is that what to do? When that happens, what will be the repercussion on inflation? There's going to be huge repercussion. The money growth that we've seen since this administration took office has been gargantuan. As a result, we are paying the price. Inflation is skyrocketing. Today, every other Ghanaian is complaining. And that's why I believe that stability, economic stability, is not math. It's not just talk. It's action. It's your budget that will signal that stability. It's what you do, your behavior, your fiscal behavior, the monetary authorities' behavior that will signal economic stability. So it's not just talk. I want to see it in the next budget. I want to see bold budget. And my brother, let me be honest with you. The next budget is a do or die budget for Ghana. If this budget fails to signal confidence, the repercussion on the economy will be severe than what we have seen. Massive, severe than what we have seen. So let's be careful. Let's advise the minister carefully. And let the minister understand that Ghana does not belong to him or their government. It doesn't. Ghana belongs to all of us. So when we are talking, you should take it on board. It's the people of Ghana that is speaking. Look, the voice of the people is the voice of God. When we speak, we're speaking for him, and he should accept it and implement it accordingly. It's all of us.
Doc, I know I said that was my last question, but out of curiosity, I just want to find out. I know you're a Christian, right? You believe in God?
I am. Yes, of course.
Right. You also believe in Genesis 18:14. There is nothing impossible for God.
Obviously.
Okay, so is the battle still the Lord's in terms of our economy?
You see, I'm a Christian. I go to church. I'm a proud Methodist. And let me tell you, God help those who help themselves. Help yourself first, and God will help you. You may believe in miracle. You may believe that the battle is the Lord's. But if you keep sleeping and not taking action, it will only get worse. Lord is for all of us. Everybody is crying on him. But help yourself for the Lord to help you. That is what we require from this administration. They should start signaling confidence. They should cut down on their wasteful lifestyle. They should show to all of us that they are committed to preserve the future of our dear country. then we'll all get on board. They should stop behaving as if the country belongs to them. It doesn't belong to them. It belongs to all of us. Ghana is for all of us. They should listen more. They should do things differently from the past and let them realize that obviously it's not our aim to crash the country. Ghana is for us, and we have nowhere else to go apart from this country. And so if we talk, we are talking to them to straighten them or to take them from the path of unrighteousness that they are going. We believe that this country deserves better than we are seeing, and that is why we are behaving this way.
The path of unrighteousness on which they've put us, you say. Just give me a yes or no. So is the economic management team sleeping?
Take that again.
You made mention of the fact that they are sleeping on the job, so to speak. So is the economic management team sleeping? Is that why we are where we are?
I think they've been legendly incompetent. And
Okay.
their attitude of ineptitude is unacceptable. It's way unbelievable. I mean, a team that sees an accident coming, they decide to do nothing but to throw their hands in despair and create the impression that there's nothing they can do about it. Can you call this team a team?
Okay.
This is the most terrible economic management team in the history of the Republic of Ghana.
Dr. Forson, we're grateful for your time.
Thank you.
Interesting conversation we've had. Initially, we had Professor Lord Mensah, University of Ghana Business School, Sairam Kawo, UCC Business School, and now Dr. Kasialato Forson, who has also shared his thoughts. He says they are on the path of economic unrighteousness, so to speak. They are sleeping on the job. They are legendarily, I think he said, incompetent. But what will the dynamics in the next few days and weeks show? Time will tell. We'll be taking a break, but before we go, hello Ghana. Happy moment is here. Let's storm World Cup Qatar 2022 with Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water from Kasapreko Company Limited. Simply buy your favorite Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water. All you have to do after that, text the 4-digit unique number on the neck of the bottle to short code *780# and choose option 2. Follow the prompts on all networks for free. You could actually be one of the lucky winners to get to this year's World Cup in the monthly draw. You could also win TVs, fridges, microwave ovens, mobile phones, home theaters, free drinks, and more instantly. So don't waste time. Grab a bottle of Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water, and let's storm Qatar this World Cup. This promotion is on the NLA Caritas platform. This advert is FDA approved. Do remember though, terms and conditions do apply. After the break, we'll be engaging you on your thoughts on these discussions we've been having. Do stay. Well, here we are back on the AM show, and it's all about hearing from you, knowing what your thoughts are as we get interactive. You know the number to call. If you sent us any message on social media, we'll try to check out as many as we can from the live feed. We can go back to those that we've had so far. But right now, we'd like to activate the phone lines. You can call through. It will be on your screens shortly. 0302 211 691 extension 2. 0302 211 691 extension 2. Let's come into the studio. Mapito.
Benjamin.
This is getting interesting. You welcome me, I welcome you. Welcome back.
Welcome back. It's good to be back. Yeah, it's good to be back, Benjamin.
Crisscross.
Crisscross.
It's another group that's been
It's the 29th of September. Quite
My
a few
feast
people.
day.
What?
My feast day. I'm Catholic.
I
Today's
see.
the Feast of the Archangels, and I happen to be named after one of them. Not Benjamin, though, but I'll not tell you. It's code.
Okay, that's lovely. Hooray.
I like the unexcitement, the way you go. That's lovely. It's Michael.
Okay, Michael.
You never knew that, did you?
No.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, news, information that can earn you many millions.
Probably not, but okay. Let's talk
So-
about birthdays.
Oh yeah, we'll get into the birthdays at the tail end, right before we run away. How about the issues we've been discussing today, though? Which ones? Of course, you've had the issue with the teachers. They were right here, and I followed the conversation. Very interesting developments and what they are threatening. What do you make of it?
I mean, it's a very sad situation, and especially because it's been happening so often. This is not the first time it's happening. And when I was speaking to the Deputy Minister for Employment, he says, yeah, he understands, but you know, every year different challenges come, and that is why these things keep on reoccurring. But they are trying to work at it. And I was asking him if, you know, he said they'll go into meetings and they'll try and give them solutions. But is this not a knee-jerk reaction? I asked him. He's like, no, it's not. It's just that, you know, this is what was put in, like, to our table. But my problem is that they've sent you letters. You didn't respond. And now that they are threatening a strike action, that's when you're saying that, okay, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to give you a solution, which is very unfair. But let's go to the phone lines. And we have, who do we have? Good morning.
So I think it's Nixon in the Volta region, or is it Amen?
Wisdom.
Okay, Wisdom.
Wisdom, good morning.
Good morning, my lady. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing very fine.
Sure. Would you like to share your thoughts with us?
Yes, please. I want to say that's where the country is going now, my sister. We need something to be done as early as possible. Something happened recently where our president went out to go and give a speech and people were hosting at it. And then they were condemning us. People were calling us coconut head and things. It's not that we are coconut head, but we have become so frustrated. My sister, we have become. It is becoming too much. You hold this thing, it will fall tomorrow. You just establish a business today. Just tomorrow, GRA is at your door, knocking to take tax from you. Meanwhile, they will not see to it that the job is even growing or the business is growing. Nothing. We sit here, people come from their country, they give them a whole lot of tax, a waiver, and we, the indigents, when you start something, they will not even give you ear to listen to you. But the moment they will come, they are in for money. My sister, we are becoming fed up. The country is becoming harder and harder. I tried my best last year to raise a 2-bedroom apartment. I finished with the building. I just wanted to roof it this year so that I can start something with it. But my sister, could you imagine that the price that I asked of roofing sheet at that time, it was 1,300 cedis.
Yeah.
By the time I go in for it recently, it was getting to around 3,000. I couldn't buy it. So I left the building like that. Cement is now here, it's about 63 Ghana cedis. Where are we going? Where are we going? Our leaders are killing us, please. We are begging them. They should try and do something about this thing. Thank you very much.
Wisdom, thank you too. Interesting comments he puts there on the back of what is happening in the economy. But if you're a fledgling company, there are some tax benefits you could enjoy. Some of them you just have to look for them and ask questions, especially if you're a startup. So you could, and especially in this environment of COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukrainian war. So if you happen to be one of those, you could actually secure some benefits. You just need to go to the GRA, and I'm sure they'll give you the right information. We have Mohammed from Tamale.
Let's go to Tamale. Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
All right. Please share your thoughts with us.
Pardon?
Please share your thoughts with us on any stories we've done so far.
Yes, good morning.
Mohammed, so you can go ahead with what you want to share with us.
My concern is that I know the economy is bad, but there is something affecting workers in certain banks in the country. And I'll give you an example of that. I'm a customer of a bank. And that bank, I take a loan from that bank. And they said because the interest rate has gone up. Now, the loan I picked years back, the interest rate is now affecting it. Let me give an example. Like, if I'm supposed to pay 500 Ghana cedis for a loan, and that since now the interest rate has gone up, the bank has now increased it to 650, thereabout. And that affects workers. I'm not the only person. We called Bank of Ghana to complain about that. They contacted them, and then they called me. And then they asked us why is going. Why I called Bank of Ghana? I said yes, I have the right to call Bank of Ghana. If I picked a loan at this time and that interest rate was there, why is it now affecting it? Because the rate should affect current loans and not the previous loans. But the other banks don't do that. When we inquire from our colleagues from the other end, no bank does that. But I accept that particular bank. I don't know whether you give me the chance to mention that bank.
No, no, definitely not. But this is what I'll say.
Okay.
I don't think that I don't know which bank you're at, but I know for a fact that there are banks in the system that, on the back of the changes in the monetary policy rate, have hiked their interest rates. So I don't know which one of them you're on, but it's not just one. I can guarantee you that.
Yes, but just that the question is, but why are the other banks not being increasing their loans on their customers? For that, it's still stable. Nothing increases. Right. Last month the rate was different, and this month, this September, it has again increased. And so if they are increasing each month, what then becomes of the customer of the bank? The take home, what will become of the person? With the family and so many mouths to feed and the utility and other things. So if the government or the bank, if you can allow me to mention that in private to you, so that the government can take that up, or the authorities in charge of that can help salvage the situation. Because
all right, so we're pressed for time. We have to wrap the show. But you can hold the line and speak to my producer and mention the name to my producer, and we'll take it from there, okay? All right. So that is how we draw the curtains on the show. A very interesting twist, Mapito, to the end of the show as we talk about these interest rates on loans. And he is right. It's becoming problematic for most people because maybe monthly you had been paying for a long time about 500 cedis. All of a sudden now you're paying way more with the same salary. Same salary.
Yeah.
It is difficult. And one of our callers referred to the coconut heads that Katie Hammond
mentioned.
I'll not go there.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate some people and then we can...
Go ahead. I have two to celebrate, so start with this.
All right, so Edward Eduji in Ireland, we celebrate you today on your birthdays from Mommy and Daddy.
And I also have a fantastic... Ireland is part of the name.
Oh, okay.
It's not...
Oh, wow. My apologies. Edward Eduji, Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And happy birthday to my pride and my joy, my Hayati. Happy birthday to Hayati. It's his first birthday. And also happy birthday to my lovely...
We didn't see Hayati.
Oh, no, Hayati is my pride and joy. This is Hayati. Yeah, you can see Hayati. And happy birthday to my lovely older sister. I wish you the very best.
You're telling me Hayati was born on my feast day?
Yes, and it's his first birthday. And also shout outs to all my fans that are sending me pictures. I love you guys. You're fantastic. Keep on doing and keep on watching me. Even tomorrow, the same time, same place, we're doing it.
More fans, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Me, I'm a superstar. Sharp.
Have a lovely day. Joy News Desk up next.